I haven't seen much of it, but from the little I have seen and from what I've heard, this is going to be very toxic. This is going to be very bad, and we're going to hear a lot of preaching. I don't know if I'm going to watch the whole thing because apparently Destiny just like quit like pretty early on, was like, this is not worth my time. Lazerpig stick through it for the whole time until Gonzalo Lira apparently got really angry and ended the conversation, hung up on him. This is going to be a very, very weird couple of hours. There he is, Gonzalo Lira.
Hello, this is Gonzalo Lira speaking to you live, and this is the Roundtable episode number 40. Today I am talking to NATO supporters, Destiny and Lazerpig. I think it's going to be a very exciting show. I've been really looking forward to this broadcast. I'm going to bring on my guests in just a little bit, but I wanted to give a brief introduction so that you know why I'm so interested in talking to NATO supporters. Because as you've seen in my previous roundtables, most of the people are highly critical of NATO and how it's conducted this war.
You think?
And so I figured that I ought to bring in, people on the other side of the coin, as it were.
Dude, this is... Now, if you are interested in listening to the other side of the, the other side of the aisle, bringing in, listening to their opinions, okay? Just remember that. His pitch is, oh, I want to listen to the other side of the aisle. That's the original pitch, okay? That's why he's bringing them on.
And so here I am, and I had looked far and wide, and finally all I did was just tweet about it.
People in chat are saying, isn't this the guy who went missing? So according to Gonzalo Lira, so he says that he's in Ukraine, in Kharkiv specifically is the area he says he's in. So apparently, according to him, the SBU like grabbed him off the street and like hid him away for weeks, and then eventually he was released. A lot of people thought he was literally killed, but he wasn't. And his story is that the SBU picked him up, interrogated him for days before eventually letting him go. Is there any evidence for this? No, but I don't know if he's lying or if he's not. I have no clue. I have no reason to doubt and or believe him. But that's the story, and that's why he says he disappeared for a few days. I honestly thought he might have been dead because he was just like disappeared for so long. Who knows what happened really? But his story is that the SBU picked him up. Might be telling the truth, might not be, who knows.
And Destiny and Lazerpig were gracious enough to agree to come on the show. And like I said, I'm going to bring them on in just a little bit. But the first thing I wanted to say are a couple of things that have come up, unfortunately, with both Destiny and Lazerpig's audiences, that many NATO supporters think that I'm lying about what has happened to me and where I'm at. Okay, they believe that I have lied about being arrested back in April 15th of 2022.
I have no reason to believe and or doubt him. He could be telling the truth because I could see why the SBU would arrest him. Not that I necessarily even agree with it, but I would understand why they would do it. But I also have no reason to particularly trust Gonzalo Lira's word and his word alone. So I have no particular strong feeling this way or the other, but a lot of people have told me in private that they don't think that he was actually arrested, and some people will even tell me that they don't even think that he's in Ukraine. I don't know if he is or not. It would be a pretty silly thing to lie about, because, I mean, if you were exposed for that, I mean, that would completely ruin your career forever. If you pretended to be in Ukraine for months and then we found out that it was all a lie. So I guess I just don't think he would be as ballsy as to lie about that. But he's lied about other things, or at least, spread misinformation about other things, like HIMARS being blown up, stuff like that. So I don't know. It's not impossible, but I have no reason to believe that he's lying.
I was arrested on the 15th and held incommunicado for a week. And a lot of people, NATO supporters, say that this is just, I made it up and it was just an attention, a way to get attention.
You know what I don't get? He with all the like anger he has towards the Zelensky regime, like he moved to Ukraine under like Zelensky. Like he didn't always live in Ukraine, right? Isn't he from Chile originally? I don't know why he moved to Ukraine if he has so many problems with the neo-Nazi evil regime. Like if I found out that a country was like led by neo-Nazis and dominated, and I can get killed at any moment because they hate me and they're coming after me, the last thing I would do is move there, right? Like, personally, I'm not, like, I don't think Russia is that, but I think due to my, you know, critiques of Russia and my beliefs about how authoritarian the regime is and what they do to journalists, I would not move to Russia under current conditions. So I do think that his, like, continued existence in Ukraine, if he's in Ukraine, is somewhat a testament, you know, to Ukrainian view towards the press versus Russian view.
And so forth and so on. Well, I just want to say that to those people who believe that I have shown the documentary.
But no, has he ever actually talked about why he thinks why he went to Ukraine? Like, does anybody know? Does he ever, like, talked about it? I have no clue. Probably sex tourism. Hey, just because Gonzalo Lira is in good faith doesn't mean we have to be bad faith, okay? I think there was an air raid siren at some point. I mean, that would, you know, it'd be pretty silly to be faking air raid sirens, wouldn't it? I have no reason to doubt that he's in Ukraine. I don't know.
To those people who believe that I have shown the documentary evidence of my situation to other content creators, specifically Alex Christoforou, and also my personal attorneys and other personal people. But insofar as the online world is concerned, Alex has seen my documentation of my arrest. So, and also Braving Ruin, but Braving Ruin has dropped out of sight insofar as the internet, which is a pity, but anyway. So Alex Christoforou has that documentation, okay? And insofar as that experience is concerned, well, you know, I was interrogated a few times. It wasn't that bad. You know, it wasn't pleasant, but, you know, it is what it is. And they were doing what they were ordered to do, so I bear them no ill will. The SBU, if you don't know, is the State Security Services of Ukraine. It's sort of like the FBI, CIA rolled up into one, insofar as Ukraine is concerned. And, you know, it was not pleasant. Let's leave it at that.
Honestly, I kind of, if somebody was to put a gun to my head and was to say, do you think this happened to Gonzalo Lira? I'd probably say, yeah, but I mean, it's like, I'm like guessing here. Again, I don't have the information. He's saying X reporter has seen the evidence. Okay, so you're not showing the evidence publicly. So I have to take X reporter. He said 2 reporters saw it, one of whom is gone now. So I guess I can't ask them. But this, you just got to take this reporter and him at his word. Like, that's kind of silly to ask people who already don't trust you because of statements you've made about the war that have been false up to this point. It's kind of silly to just assume they're going to believe you. But personally, if you were to put a gun to my head and to say, Dylan, did he get arrested or did he didn't? I would probably say yes. And the reason why is I would imagine if he was telling a story about it, even if he may exaggerate 1 or 2 parts, I assume he would be like, oh, it was the worst experience ever. You know, they beat me. They did this. They did that. And I would imagine he would like create a different story than the story he's created.
That, but they were doing what they had been ordered to do, and I was doing as my conscience dictated. Okay, but the important thing is that there is documentary proof of my being held and arrested and interrogated and all the rest of it. At this time, I'm not releasing it. Once this conflict is over, no problem.
But no one will care anymore once the war is over. Okay, whatever.
The other thing that a lot of NATO supporters insist on is that I'm not in Kharkov. And they keep insisting that I show video of where I live, you know, of like the skyline of the city, okay? Now, the fact is, I am in Kharkov, and I have repeatedly shown to different content creators who have come on my show various landmarks of the city of Kharkov that, you know, prove indisputably that I'm here in the city. I mean, landmarks that I can see from my apartment. And so I've proved it to those people.
Honestly, him going this long about this makes it look more suspicious than I originally thought. I am now, because of the arguments he's making, while also showing no evidence whatsoever, more suspicious of him than I was before listening to him. Like, if he was to just start right with the debate, I'd be like, I wouldn't even think about it. But now that he's like, yeah, I got the evidence. I mean, I can't show anybody the evidence. I'll show you maybe years from now. But like, and also this other thing, I've shown other content creators evidence. I mean, I'm not going to show you guys evidence, but I showed other guys evidence. It's like, okay, well, I wasn't really that suspect before, but now I feel a little suspect. Like, I don't, like, why even like go back and forth if you don't want to like show the evidence? You could just say, look, this happened to me. For security reasons, I cannot show you where I live, obviously, or I can't meet these standards, or I can't do this. It is what it is. You either believe me or you don't. It's up to you. Like, just, and be done with it, right? But endlessly explaining, like, I showed this guy evidence, but I'll never show you guys until years from now. Like, that is sus.
Okay. And they can say just about all the guests I've had. I've shown it to them. I mean, Clint Ehrlich, Alex Christoforou, Brian Berletic. I mean, the usual suspects. So they know that, what you call it, I'm here. Yeah, and I even showed them one of the great picture that I took, because the building next to my own in early September was hit by a missile, a Russian missile. And I got this perfect shot of it, right? Because the missile hit a building next to my own building, but on the other side, because my apartment faces in one direction and the building that was hit was on the opposite direction. So nothing happened to my apartment, but the stairwell, because the electricity got cut, okay? And so you had to go up and down the stairs. And on the stairwell, you know, I saw the picture, you know, this huge hole, and I took a picture of it. It was a great picture, and I can't share it because it shows the Kharkov skyline. It would be no trick at all to triangulate where I am. And I can't afford to do that, see? I don't want to reveal my location publicly. I don't want to give...
I understand the concern about not, like, exposing your position. Definitely when he has the political beliefs he has in Ukraine. Like, if a Ukrainian found out that their neighbor endorses the Russian bombing of their city, which has probably killed their family members, their community members, possibly their children or parents or anything. Their sons and daughters are all fighting against this, and the Russians are trying to take the land. Like, yeah, it could inspire some people to do some crazy stuff that they shouldn't do. But like, if you're living in a country saying yes, bomb us, it's not that crazy that they're not going to be too happy with you.
Give any kind of video or photographic evidence that would help people figure out where I am, because of a very simple reason. And the simple reason is this. This is the Mirotvorets hit list, okay? And a lot of people who troll me want me very badly to reveal my location. Now, the Mirotvorets list that you're seeing right here, this is a, and let me just scroll a little so you can see it's a real thing. And I can't, unfortunately, put this link in the description right now while I'm live, but as soon as the show is over, I'll put it up, so you'll see it there. Anyway, the point of this, oh, you know what I can do? While we're here, I can just clip the link and post it in chat so that you can all see it for yourselves and know that I'm not making this up, okay? Just posted it on the chat. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing this up is that, you know, there are a lot of people who would like to kill me. See, because this list, the so-called peacemaker list, is a list of people who are considered unfriendly to the Zelensky regime. And these people who are considered unfriendly, well, they are being encouraged to be, they are fomented to kill these people. And there are all kinds of people here. I mean, there's everybody from Vladimir Putin to Sergei Lavrov, who...
I don't think the list is specifically telling anybody to go out and kill them. But like the list is like basically, hey, these are the people who like don't like Ukraine or enemy, quote unquote, like enemies of Ukraine, enemies of the nation. You know, they'll put like Russian propagandists on there. They'll put a ton of people, different people on there. And it's not really a huge surprise that Gonzalo Lira ended up being put on there, considering that he like blames Ukraine for their own slaughter, denies the war crimes that the Russians did. You know, talks about how like Poland and Hungary and Russia is going to annex all this land, and Russia and Ukraine's a Nazi state run by Nazis and NATO puppet state. Like he's repeating all the propaganda talking points of the Russian government. lying for them on many occasions, like he did about the HIMARS being destroyed. So it's not really that surprising he ended up on the list. I'm more surprised that he was really considered notable enough to be put on the list, not that his opinions got him put on the list. But it's not like encouraging people to go kill him. But it is true that if somebody does die and you're on the list, they put a fucking X over you, which is unbelievably cold-blooded. It's run by like some NGO. It's not run by the Ukrainian government, but I am familiar with reports that some checkpoints, I don't know if they do it during this war, if they've done it for it, have used the list to like look for people to see if you're coming through the checkpoint, if you're on the list, they might stop you and interrogate you, stuff like that.
I don't think are really worried about this list. To people in the United States, people like Scott Ritter, people like Eva Bartlett, I mean, a whole bunch of people. And I'm on it too. I've been on it since June. And I'm not particularly concerned about the SBU, because the SBU knows exactly where I'm at. And the SBU realizes that I'm just a middle-aged YouTuber who presents no threat to them at all. On the contrary, I'm much more problems for them than it's worth their time. Because I'm not, a military guy or intelligence guy. I'm just...
He's right. It would be more trouble than it's worth for the SBU to, like, do anything to him. So they're probably just leaving him alone. Not that surprising.
Commenting shit. And there's, like, a lot of different people in several different countries where I have residency who'd be very pissed off if I just vanished, right? But there are a lot of crazies who'd love to knock me off. You go on this website, right? And whenever somebody on this web...
Oh, somebody's bringing this up in chat. I do remember this. Zelensky's wife at one point was actually on this list. I forget what for. Somebody's saying it was because she posted something controversial. I forget exactly what for, but at one point I believe Zelensky's wife was on the list.
Website is assassinated. They put an X.
Yep,
and they celebrate it. Now, why am I bringing up this site? Well, because you see, this site, the internet being what it is, 4chan and Poll being who they are, they trace the IP address of this website. And you know where the IP address led to? It led to NATO headquarters in Brussels.
What? Okay.
And so you see my situation.
Wait, does he have a link or like proof for that? Like that is an insanely bold claim. That like NATO headquarters is running what he describes as a hit list that put him, like, this makes it look like NATO is trying to assassinate him. This is what he this is what he's accusing. He's basically saying that NATO put me on a hit list and they're trying to get me killed. The SBU wouldn't do it because it's not worth the trouble, but NATO is going to use this through a proxy to murder me. So that's why I can't prove that I live in Ukraine. That's why I can't prove many of the claims that I've made about being arrested or things like that, because I'm afraid of, like, I don't, like, he's gonna need to source that, because that is a extremely bold claim. I mean, a lot of European NGOs and a lot of I think even European governments have actually condemned this list. So it'd be weird if those same governments were also like managing the list. Like just proof, site, source.
I mean, NATO is
what did he just
essentially...
say?
Wait,
what?
Targeting me for assassination.
Wait, I haven't been listening.
I mean,
can we just pull up the IP of the site? Can somebody do like a DNS lookup and see where the IP
everybody
is?
On this list dead.
Because I'm almost 99% sure he's just lying.
Is being run out of Brussels, out of NATO headquarters there. Okay.
Why, dude? What the thing is? Let's say NATO was managing this website. Already insane. We're already in fantasy land. It feels like. If he can prove it, I mean, he's got the story of the century. Why would they run it out of NATO headquarters? Why wouldn't they run it out of a separate website? Why would they run it out of NATO headquarters when they could run it out of something that isn't connected to them? That'd be like running like a secret CIA program to like brainwash the people in the Philippines, and the IP address goes directly to Langley. Why would they do it directly to Langley?
And so I have a vested interest in knowing what people, how could I put this? Let me rephrase this. I have a vested interest in NATO, and I have a vested interest in making it clear what NATO is actually doing.
Is this really, out of all the things he can like go after NATO for, there's so many things you could like legitimately criticize NATO for, either inaction in some areas or them like having like, I don't want to really get into it. I assume we're going to get into it in this discussion. But there's a million things you can criticize NATO for, and what he has decided to make his crusade is that NATO wants to assassinate him because of this website. Because he says, with evidence yet to be provided, that it's ran out of NATO headquarters.
Morally corrupt, bankrupt.
And that's his evidence of his vested interest in fighting back against NATO and Ukraine. Anything is possible when you lie, Dylan. That is true. Also,
corrupt,
only everyone gifted 5 tier 1 subs with some adorable, cute little hearts in the Twitch chat. I also see Left Hand Stu in there. Hey, Left Hand. Thank you so much for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. First gifter of the night. I appreciate it. 5 big ones, 5 pepperonis. I appreciate it.
Because they actively...
Hey, now all that money will go directly to NATO headquarters to run my website. They run DylanBurns.tv, of course.
Goes to Cloudflare.
I mean, if they didn't,
how could he possibly know the IP address?
If they didn't, they wouldn't be.
Also, can I just say, and somebody just brought this up in chat, if NATO wanted Gonzalo Lira dead, legitimately wanted him dead, and the SBU knows where he is, why wouldn't NATO just get the information for where he's at from the SBU and just go fucking kill him? Just like kick in his door, shoot him 6 times. I don't know, drop a Molotov or drop a bomb there and then say, I don't know, the Russians bombed it or something. Like, they could do a million different plots or schemes to try to kill him if they really wanted to kill him. If they really wanted to do some evil undercover plot, why wouldn't they just do that instead of making some proxy where he's on a list? Like, what? I don't understand it.
Hosting this website, encouraging people to assassinate any and all names on this website. See?
There are no zero days. There's not any weird shit about Cloudflare where you can look up an IP behind Cloudflare, right?
Can you? To stuff and don't really care. So I'm figuring that most NATO.
Okay, so Destiny doesn't seem to have any evidence that this is run out of NATO headquarters either. Like, it's just a bizarre claim. I've seen people complain about this website before. I know from just the grapevine that Gonzalo Lira is unbelievably like anxious about this list, and he thinks like that the people are coming for him. But I didn't know he was, before he even talks to people who disagrees with him, he has to like do a soliloquy about how the reason he opposes NATO is because NATO is gonna murder him. They're gonna drag him to the street. He's gonna die. It's like, come on, calm down, buddy. Like, can we just get into the debate? Like, is all of this even necessary?
Are there known vulnerabilities?
Are ignorant about what NATO is up to, right? I mean, that seems to be reasonable.
No, okay,
that
he's just making shit up
about what NATO is about. Or it could be that they're not ignorant. They actually know what NATO is up to. And so since they know what NATO is up to, then what's really going on is that, see, they're evil.
Okay, so not only does he need to, like, before the debate even starts, he needs to explain why he's the victim. He's the victim, he's being persecuted. Not only does he need to do that, but then he poisons the well even further to a worse degree by declaring that if you are on the side of NATO
Blue
or
Rider
Ukraine...
of Neptune has donated $10. Site chat best chat. Dylan. Also, I'm officially an Burns CIA agent on Patreon.
Hey, another CIA agent on Patreon. We have different tiers. I think the top one is like Lizard Person for $25. You get to be part of my cabal. But thank you for the $10. I appreciate that, Blue Rider. And thank you for endorsing the correct chat that if you type in DylanBurns.tv, DylanBurns.tv, into your URL, you go to my website and you can go into my site chat and be part of the global elite that I've established instead of gutter chat, otherwise known as Twitch chat. So I appreciate you funding our gated community on my website.
And they know about this list. about the targeted.
Yeah, but no, he's poisoning the well. He's basically saying not only is he like painting himself like as the maximum victim before the conversation's even started, he is saying that if you disagree with me here, if you disagree with me on NATO and in Ukraine and all of this stuff, you're either ignorant, stupid, or you're like evil. You're stupid or evil. The people I'm about to talk to not only are with the people who are victimizing me, but they're either stupid and or evil.
Morally corrupt, bankrupt man.
Why would anybody agree to go on somebody's program if before they even bring you on, they tell their audience, they prepare them for their guests by saying the people we're about to talk to are either stupid and or evil, and they work with people who want to murder me? Like from the get-go, this is not going to be a productive conversation. You can see the virtue signaling coming from like 10 miles away, not a mile away. You don't even need binoculars. It's like a sign on the like the Hollywood sign. You can see it for miles, tens of miles around it. Lyco SXVI, thank you so much for the prime. I appreciate it, buddy. Done a quick look up. The server is behind Cloudflare, a content delivery network. If the server that he connects to is in Brussels, he either uses a VPN or is not in Ukraine. Well, I'm sure Gonzalo Lira will bring this evidence forward before we know. I mean, he hasn't brought an evidence forward for him, being arrested or being in Kharkiv publicly or this publicly yet, I guess. But I'm sure he will in the conversation. He's somebody who substantiates every claim.
Assassinations, and they know that what you call it, what NATO is really up to. Okay, so I figure it'd be interesting to have a discussion with my two guests to figure out if they are ignorant or not.
He's literally saying, I'm gonna have a conversation with these people to find out if they're retarded or Hitler. That's the two, and I'm saying it how he would say it because it's Coach Red Pill. No, I don't like using the language, but that's literally how this is basically becoming. It's like you're either a knuckle dragger or you are Pol Pot. That's like the two options. It's a complete zero-sum game. There's no way that he could be wrong. There's no way that the great Gonzo Lira, Coach Red Pill, could be wrong. You're either Adolf Hitler or you are a tiny little baby boy in a carriage pooping your pants.
Now let me bring on my guests right now. My guests are Destiny, Stephen Bennell, how's it going? Good to see you. And here we have Lazerpig. Lazerpig, how's it going? Good to meet you finally.
Why, hello.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. Stephen, how are you? It's been a long time since you and I have spoken.
So most of my audience probably knows who Destiny is. Destiny is a Twitch streamer. He used to do, well, he was a Twitch streamer and now he's banned on a platform. But the thing is, Lazerpig is I think he's British. He's a British content creator who talks about military and military history and military technology and war and conflict. And his videos are really, really, really good. I would really recommend them. And Destiny, of course, is a debate bro, internet edgelord, who streams Factorio. He's a full-time Factorio streamer now. He talks politics all the time.
Steve and I have known each other since nothing specific. We've just, sort of like share the same. Also,
when did Coach Red Pill, because I'm calling Gonzalo Lira used to be known as Coach Red Pill. When did Coach Red Pill make the transition from like, I'm going to give you advice on how to pick up women, to be like, hey, I am the expert on Ukraine, Russia, NATO now? Like, when did that happen? He'd be insulted that you called him British? Wait, what is he then? Is he not British? Is he not British? He's Scottish. Oh my. Okay, so he is British. But he's just the subdivision of British.
Same space on YouTube, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, hey, what's up?
How's it going? Good to see you. Oops, hang on a second. Let me just, before we get to that, because The thing is, see,
everyone has donated $15.
Hey.
The message you share align perfectly with our globalist values. Yours truly, NATO.
Thank you, and hey, thank you for keeping me off the hit list and putting all of my opponents on it out of NATO headquarters. I'll be stopping by to check the servers out in Brussels very shortly. Thank you for the $15. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Jean-Claude Juncker, Klaus Schwab, and Mr. NATO.
I want to do this conversation with you both as NATO supporters because can I
just interrupt you?
Wait, hang on. Yeah, you'll have plenty of time. And in fact, I'm going to wind down.
I really don't think they will have plenty of time. I really don't think they will.
And you guys will be able to talk all you want. But I just want to say a few things before I get derailed. See, what we're going to do is that we're going to have like a structured conversation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up on screen a series of statements, and they're very simple statements, and they're not kind of like gotcha statements or anything like that. Nothing like minutia or depending on obscure information. No, it's going to be very straightforward questions.
I see this Twitter link,
and they're
this is just
false statements. And I'd really like to listen to what you guys have to say. So go ahead, Lazerpig.
So we're just going to be doing a slideshow. He's got a slideshow presented. He's going to be going through the slides saying, is it true that is that really what we're, okay. So it's not a back and forth conversation. It's a slideshow. That's what we're going to be doing. Okay.
You wanted to say?
Oh, wait. Oh my God. Before Lazerpig, actually, could I just ask like 2 questions real quick? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Because that intro was something else. The, that website, you said it traces back to NATO?
Yeah.
How can you do that?
Well, I don't know the specifics of that, but it has been, and it's been confirmed repeatedly by different people who know what they're doing.
Can I
specifically.
Wait. I don't know any of the specifics, but NATO wants to kill me. I didn't look into the specifics. Again, my life is in danger. They want to murder me, but I don't know the specifics. I didn't even look into it. If they want to murder you, why wouldn't you look into the specifics? If I heard that there was an organization coming to blow my brains out, right? I would probably learn the specifics very quickly. I mean, maybe that's just me. I don't know, but whatever.
I
just can't get up. This conversation's gonna go nowhere.
I specifically got somebody that.
Oh, that's right. Thank you so much for the prime. I appreciate it.
I know on tech. To figure it out, and they were like, yeah, it goes back to, and he listed the IP addresses and the whole shebang. So
I love it. Like, I love this evidence. NATO wants to murder me. They did this website that's been up for a while, but they did it. It tracks back to them. Oh, you want evidence that that would be really crazy evidence if that NATO wants to murder a YouTuber, which he even himself admits that he's not really important enough for the SBU to really even care about. Oh, well, I know a tech guy and he told me. His standard for proof is brilliant, man.
Yeah. Gotcha.
If you want, I can send you that information. It'd have to be a separate email.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool. I only wanted to say real quick before we hop on everything, and then Lazerpig, you can go. That website, I did a DNS lookup because I was curious. It's hosted on Cloudflare. You're never pulling an IP address off that website.
I don't know how it was done.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Why are you talking about it? Hey, I feel like if I knew that an organization wanted to murder me as powerful as NATO, I would get the facts together to explain how I know that this organization wants to murder me. Definitely if I'm about to talk to 2 people about the fact that an organization that they support wants to murder me, right? Like if I was going to talk to somebody about the Russian Patriots organization, which put me on a hit list, was going to murder me, I feel like I would want to, if I said that it traced back to the Kremlin, I would want evidence of that, right? Like I know that there's been examples of people from Russia trying to hack into my accounts, right? Discord sent me notifications like, hey, people, are you in Moscow? I was like, I don't think so. But I can't claim that it was people in the Russian government. Could it have been? I guess. But I really don't know. And so I'm not going to come out and say, the Kremlin is trying to find out my location so they can murder me in the street. Like, I can't make those claims because I don't have all the information. I mean, maybe his buddy can come out and explain in the future, like how exactly the evidence came forward, but I don't see it.
I'm just saying, I see on Twitter where somebody has linked the site back to NATO URL. I'm looking at it right now. All they did was they did an inspect element, and they're looking at a link to a video on the site, and the link to that video might go to a NATO website, but the site itself is not hosted on NATO. If it's a Cloudflare domain, you'd never be able to look it up. But,
if that's what you think, that's perfectly fine. But
you said that they want to murder you. They're trying to kill you. How do you not know the specifics that now you can't even like be confronted on it?
I have independent corroboration, and I can send it to you. So there we go.
There we go. He's got the evidence that he'll send you later when nobody's paying attention. Thank you very much. Hey, Derpageddon, thank you for the Prime. Thank you for being sub for 5 months, being on a 2-month streak. Look, all I can make out of that sentence you posted, because while I've got it on my arm, I'm trying to learn the language, is I think it says NATO in there. So I'll just agree with you by default.
Okay, Lazerpig, you wanted to say something?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Good. It's great to have you on. It was very
I've been told to make myself a little bit louder. I have perhaps been drinking a little bit too much over the past few days, and I have a bit of a sore throat, but I have some tea here, so that's quite nice. But I want to ask you a question. I'd rather take objection to you calling me pro-NATO. I've never ever stated that I'm pro-NATO. I don't think I've ever mentioned that I'm pro-NATO. I don't think I've ever stated that anywhere that I'm pro-NATO. I'm not pro-NATO. I am pro-Ukraine.
So you're pro-Zelensky regime?
What does that even mean? Wait. Okay, so if the United States, let's say the United States was invaded under this feels a little bit like a straw man. If the United States was invaded under Donald Trump, and then I was like, man, I'm pro-America in this. Obviously, I don't think China should own a California. Would it be pro-Donald Trump regime to say I support America? No, not necessarily. Personally, on like a political level, I don't really agree with a lot of Zelensky's politics, probably. I'm a lot more pro-union than Zelensky. There's a lot of issues that I didn't agree with the recent media law. That's another thing I disagree with Zelensky on. If I really go through the specifics, I bet I could find a bunch of things I don't agree with Zelensky on. But no matter what, Russian occupation of Ukraine means a lower living standard for Ukrainians. It means Ukrainians being denied their cultural heritage, and it means Ukrainians not being able to have the future they want for themselves. That sovereignty is denied from them, and their developing young democracy gets curb stomped. I don't think you necessarily need to be pro-Zelensky government or pro-Zelensky's political party to be pro the nation of Ukraine, pro the country of Ukraine, maintaining its independence. Doom Spiral, thank you for the tier 1 and beats up for 16 months. Oh, Lira Gonzalo, I can't wait for a nuanced, information-dense, and in-depth conversation about the war in Ukraine. Oh, it's gonna be something. And hey, a hype train, I appreciate it.
I'm pro-Ukraine, and I'm pro...
No. I said specifically pro-Zelensky regime or anti-Zelensky regime.
That's... I mean, if somebody was to put, it would depend on like if it's a wartime scenario, I'd probably vote for Zelensky. If it wasn't, I'd probably vote for a different political party, to be honest. But like I'm not Ukrainian, so it's like I don't know if it's even like my place to tell them who to vote for. You know what I mean? Like I have an opinion, but this feels a little. We're starting early, aren't we? Dear Copian, thanks for 100 bits.
I'm pro-Zelensky regime.
Then you're pro-NATO.
Okay.
Because the Zelensky regime is allied with NATO, and that's pretty obvious, and so there's that.
Can if I'm pro-Armenia, in the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, let's say I came out and I said, hey, everybody, I'm pro-Armenia. Does that mean I'm pro-Russia because Armenia is allied with Russia? Because that's like that's their ally they're trying to have to protect like Nagorno-Karabakh? I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Oh, and by the way, I'm just going to go outside. I'm muting my camera just to step outside and smoke a cigarette. So go ahead.
Okay, well, I would disagree that being pro-Ukraine is also... The
Zelensky regime is allied...
You gotta let him finish his sentence, Gonzo.
...with NATO. The Zelensky regime is getting weapons from NATO. The Zelensky regime is getting private military contractors from NATO. The Zelensky regime has begged to be a part of NATO, and NATO is supplying it with everything it can at this time. So to say that you are pro-Zelensky means that you are pro-NATO.
Right. Okay. That's an interesting stance to take. But I'm going to state that I am not pro NATO. I am pro Ukraine. I am pro.
So you
Can he please just let him finish a sentence?
Fighting for the sovereignty of their own nation against a fascist regime intent on their extermination, if or not you believe that. I do not give a shit about NATO. I will not have my position dictated to me. I know who I am. I know what I believe.
You are supporting NATO. You are a NATO supporter. So that's
Ukraine.
that.
I'm here to talk about Ukraine, and I will speak on Ukraine.
If you cared about Ukraine, you'd be interested in peace. But you're not interested in peace. You're interested in more war. You're pro-NATO.
What does the majority of Ukrainians believe? Because if what he's saying true, then like 80 to 90%, no, like 90% of Ukrainians do not care about Ukraine and they don't love Ukraine. It's a ridiculous, the idea that, because I think it's like 80%, over 80% of Ukrainians want Ukraine to be in NATO, right? So most Ukrainians are more pro-NATO than even Lazerpig is espousing here, right? And Lazerpig is specifically saying he's not pro-NATO. But the idea that you cannot be pro-Ukraine while also being like Ukraine should be part of NATO and or be okay with fighting back against the invaders is ridiculous, because that would mean that this Chilean guy who hasn't lived in Ukraine for what, more than a few years, maybe I think a year, maybe a few years, he's just like you know, there for a little bit. He somehow is more pro-Ukraine than the vast majority of Ukrainians because he has decided that Ukraine needs to give away all of its land, its territory, its sovereignty. That's a little silly, isn't it? Who created that standard?
Period.
Well, can we to bridge the two here? Like, is it not possible to support one side without supporting every single party supporting that side?
No, I mean
that's not the issue.
I'm sorry,
says he's pro-Ukraine. I'm pro-Ukraine. I want the devastation to end as quickly as possible. But of course, NATO wants to prolong it, and he seems to be very happy with that. So therefore, he is.
What does that even mean? He's happy with death and destruction? Like, this is just bad faith. You can say that a fight is just and righteous while also not being happy that a war is happening. All right. For example, would it be silly for me to say, wow, these American soldiers are anti-France because they want to do a D-Day invasion and liberate France? Well, that's just going to lead to a bunch of French people dying in the street. Oh, really? Well, I would say that maybe ask the French what they want. They don't want German occupation. They want to be liberated. And so that struggle to the French is righteous and worth their liberation. And so you can be pro-liberation and pro-continuing the struggle to liberating France and be pro-France. In fact, I don't really think you can be pro-France and also be pro-German occupation. Vichy France was not, I think, a pro-French institution. So I think it is quite silly for him to say that you cannot be pro-Ukraine and also be in favor of them resisting the invasion. Definitely when his position is the position the vast majority of Ukrainians would spit on. There's a reason why Gonzalo Lira is against people knowing where he is. And it's not even because the SBL wants to arrest him, like he's already said. It's because he's scared other people will come and get him. And he says it's that organization. I think there's a good chance it might literally just be his neighbor. Like, you want the Russians to win? The Russians who murdered my children, the Russians who bombed our city, who destroyed our infrastructure, and then they might, you know, beat his ass. I mean, that would be very bad for somebody to be beat up for the political opinions. But also, these are people who are having their villages burned to the ground. So it also wouldn't be that surprising. And the fact that he probably doesn't want everybody to know where he is, I think is partially a testament to the fact that he knows that everybody around him really, really, really doesn't like what he has to say about the war. Gridhook, thank you so much for the 5 tier 1. I appreciate it. A lot of gifters today. I really appreciate all the love.
He's pro-NATO and pro-war and pro-killing Ukrainian people.
Well, I think,
pro-killing Ukrainian people. This is just dishonest. This is just like dishonest smear job. I mean, it's not that surprising since he started with saying, my opponents are either Hitler or mentally disabled. Let's begin. Like, I don't know exactly what I expected, but this is very dishonest.
Ukraine nation.
Well, wait, hold on, because hold on. Jeez, I'm sorry, it's early. I'm trying to figure out.
Before we get into that,
are we gonna have an actual discussion, or is it gonna be all?
Yes,
memes?
we're gonna have an actual discussion that's structured as I see fit.
Okay, but then like
as he sees fit.
I think we can like walk through point to point. We don't have to be like, well, he's pro-Ukraine, so he's pro-NATO, so he wants to kill Ukrainians.
The first thing that we're going to talk about, and if I have to mute you,
Can anybody actually watch this and come away with this thinking like, man, Gonzalo Lira is really showing these guys. This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing behavior. I had a talk with Spike Cohen last night. He was the vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party in 2020. He was the VP for Joe Jorgensen. I disagreed with him on Ukraine. I disagree with him on the UN. I disagree with him on taxation. I disagree with him on many things. But at no point was I like, you want to kill Ukrainians. You want them all to die in a fireball because you don't want to send aid. And I didn't lead with the whole segment saying the person we're about to talk to is a scumbag loser. And you want to know why? Because I wanted to have a somewhat good faith back and forth discussion / debate, whatever you want to call it, that people could look at and say, wow, Dylan is not being dishonest here. But the immediate read I get from him is that he wants basically Lazerpig and Destiny to stand there so he can look them in the eye in front of his audience and virtue signal saying, you disgust me, you pro-NATO, anti-Ukraine, murdering pig dog. You want to watch all Ukrainians die. You want me to be assassinated. You want to rape women and children. You want the world to explode. Like he just wants a virtue signal and like rant at them, not actually talk to them or even debate them. Because anytime Lazerpig tries to stand up and say, no, I don't want all Ukrainians to die, Gonzalo Lira is like shouting him down, and like Destiny is trying to like reel in this convo before it just becomes the Gonzo Lira stress relieving session. Like that's what it feels like it's becoming right off the bat. What's that shirt? What the hell is my shirt?
Burns is
I'm a mom
morally corrupt, bankrupt
against
man.
Cowboys. It's not a shirt, but it is a sweater, and I like the sweater a lot. Hey, I think that's Kalinda. Thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. We're getting a lot of love tonight. I really appreciate all the support, boys. Thank you. My goodness. You're a good mom. Thank you. I think I'm a fantastic mother.
Burns is an immoral.
Get a lot of good support tonight. I really appreciate it, everybody.
Man.
What was that like? That's like 3 separate 5 tier 1 gifters. Got to make up for that list YouTube income. True, the lost YouTube income.
Burns
I got unbanned though, so we're uploading videos again.
Corrupt, bankrupt man.
Thank goodness. Now I'm no longer a COVID misinformation freak.
Because you keep interrupting, I'll mute you. The first thing we're going to talk about is true or false. The Kiev regime was doing nothing to provoke Putin into invading Ukraine. Putin's invasion was groundless. Putin has imperial ambitions and is inherently evil. Is this true or false?
Immoral, morally corrupt.
We can only answer with one word for it. These are really loaded statements.
Wait, I'm sorry. What is this? Is he actually just gonna go through true or false? It's like, well, actually, I have some nuance I want to give on this perspective. Or is this really what this is going to be? Did he just prepare a whole slideshow so he has like little like narrative traps so he could trap them in? Like, so why did you molest the children? Because you thought they were hot, or because you just want to hurt them? But I didn't molest a child. No, there's 2 options. Option 1 or option 2. No nuance. But I didn't do that. Like, that's what it... Oh, no. This is going to be terrible. This is going to be terrible. This is going to be awful. Oh, God. Doom Spiral. Thanks for the 300 bits. Do you think Haas and Hinkle would have had a more nuanced conversation than this? No. The last debate, quote unquote, I had with Hinkle, it was in a Twitter convo. One of those Twitter spaces.
That one boy 227 has donated $5. His chat was filled with Z-Goblins, and he didn't allow people to type in chat unless they had been subbed for 8 days.
Well, of course not, because he didn't want anybody to tell him he was wrong. Thank you for the $5. I mean, it's not surprising. Gonzalo Lira has an incredibly thin skin, as this conversation's already proving. But the last time I talked to Jackson Hinkle, it ended with him going after my mother's heroin addiction in order to try to get a rouse out of me. The last time I debated Infrared, it almost ended in a fist fight because he was embarrassed that he turned down a boxing match once he found out that I knew how to throw a punch. So like, no, I don't think it would have been any more substantive. I think most of the pro-Russia crowd kind of just acts like this all the time. There's very few people who don't.
talk about is true or false. The Kiev regime was doing nothing to provoke Putin into invading Ukraine. Putin's invasion was groundless. Putin has imperial ambitions and is inherently evil. Is this true or false?
This lacks all nuance. I mean, if you would actually, like, I guess the answer would be false, that they didn't do anything to provoke. I'm sure they did one or two things that were provocative, but something could be provocative and also be the right thing to do. But the vast majority of the problems that happened in this war were pushed forward by the Russians. They were the one who tried to use economic coercion in 2014 to force the Ukrainian government not to accept trade deals with the European Union, which they agreed they wouldn't do in the Budapest Memorandum. They were also the same ones that were fostering corruption in Ukraine. They were the same ones who invaded Crimea while denying they were doing it the whole time. They were the same ones backing rebels in the Donbass for 8 years, sending in FSB agents and soldiers, and they were the ones who said that they weren't going to invade in 2022 because they had soldiers on the border. It was all training, and then they invaded, and then they committed horrific war crimes. Like every single step of the way, it was the Russians who pushed this forward. Like no question. But when you frame it this way, then all Gonzalo Lira needs to do, if they say true, is he just needs to find one instance where the Ukrainians did something provocative. He's like, "Aha, I caught you." This is, he's trying to lay traps and giving them only two options. And no matter what option they choose, there's like a fire pit. No nuance allowed to avoid the fire pit. Pure Copium, thank you so much for giving a tier 1 sub. I appreciate it.
We can only answer with one word for it. These are really loaded statements.
Yeah, I can agree
go ahead,
here.
answer them. They're very clear. True or false?
I mean, Destiny, do you want to take this one, or shall I take the flag here?
Well, I mean, like, we're using conjunctions here in ways that are pretty complicated. I mean, like, you can argue that there are a lot of things that a country could do
True,
that could
false. These are very simple statements, Stephen. If you can't answer them,
bro, we're talking about,
clearly
like,
you don't want to answer them.
These are...
Dude, what a dishonest actor. I mean, is there anybody who actually listens to this and is like, "Oh, Gonzalo Lira is really showing these NATO boys"? I mean, come on.
Really, these are really... These are complicated geopolitical issues. You can't do it true or false.
Did the provoke Putin into invading Ukraine? Yes or no? This is simple.
No.
It did not provoke Putin into invading Ukraine. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Lazerpig? Did the Kiev regime do anything to provoke Putin into invading Ukraine? Yes or no?
Well, let's say, for the moment, let's play devil's advocate
yes
here.
or no?
Let's play devil's advocate
was doing
here.
Nothing to provoke.
What a loser. I'm sorry. Gonzalo Lira is a fucking loser. I'm sorry. Like, I've talked to a lot of people that I disagree with. And, like, at the end of the day, even if we yell and hate each other during the debate, like, afterwards, I'll be like, okay, I also, like, watch a movie with them or have a beer with them. I think it's important, like, if you're living in a liberal democracy or you believe in democracy, that you be able to coexist with a lot of people who disagree with you, as long as their ideology isn't inherently like seeking your annihilation or something. Then I think you can do that. But this guy is just insufferable. It feels like he has no interest in trying to be good faith here and allowing the guests that he has invited onto his program to express their opinions. He just wants to lambast them, and he's trying to set them up. That's what this is. It's very clearly trying to set them up. Now, if in the middle of the debate they had a bunch of yes or no questions, because it's like, hey, would you do this or would you do that? If you're only two options, something like that, I understand that. But like starting off the bat with loaded questions and not allowing Destiny and or Lazerpig to like word their answer in a way which allows them to give nuance, this is dishonest.
Putin into invading Ukraine? Yes or no? It's simple, Lazerpig. Answer the question.
Are you going to let me talk, or are you going to scream at me like a child?
I'm asking you a straightforward question. It's simple.
No,
yes
I'm
no.
sorry. You invited me here under the premise that I would have my chance to speak, and you would not interrupt me, and this would be a civilized discussion.
Go ahead.
Are you sure? I'm going to speak, and you're not going to interrupt me, are you? Good. So let's take the stance that the Kiev regime, the Zelensky regime, I love that word, regime. Let's take that they have provoked this. They have done.
Shaker Ms. Expert $25.
Yo,
I heard about your channel getting a strike and wanted to help out. I know it isn't much, but I hope it helps. The work you're doing out there is incredible. Keep it up.
Hey Maze, I really appreciate the $25, man. I got sushi today, and I spoiled myself. I'm doing I'm a young guy, so I have this problem where I order too much DoorDash, and I'm trying to be more fiscally responsible. So I've limited myself to one eating out a week, because I hate cooking, but I need to be better with that. And you just covered half the sushi. I appreciate it. I ordered sushi. Thank you. The strike though, thank goodness, was finally reversed last night. During our stream too. So thank you for supporting the channel. Because definitely considering how crazy the YouTube management system is, I'm really worried about what they're going to do to my channel in the future. So I really do appreciate it.
Done something to provoke Putin. About 7,000 civilians, Ukrainian civilians, have died. Many of those.
The 70,000 number is, I mean, I don't know. We don't know the specifics, but it's definitely a lot. Like the UN gives the number of 7,000. Talked about this with Scott. I was about to say Scott Ritter. I talked about this yesterday, Marion. But the number is most likely like around more like 70,000 to like 100,000, like in that range, somewhere around there. The estimates for Mariupol vary wildly.
Russian birth or with Russian heritage. Exactly how does their death, how does the targeting of civilians, wholesale slaughter of civilians,
That's a lie.
justify?
They have not been targeted. They have not been targeted
How does that
specifically. I'm hearing
justify what
that
Putin
is
is
not
doing?
accurate. That is a lie.
Are we?
I mean, I'm gonna be for real. There is footage of them targeting civilians on many occasions, shooting them in the back, shooting them in the head. And this isn't even just hearsay or like the stories, because there's a million stories, right? And I bet a lot of them are true, but we're just never going to be able to get the evidence for it. But we have footage of Russian soldiers shooting Ukrainians like in the back of the head as they walk away during the battle for Kiev. I have taken footage of the Russians shelling civilians in Lviv personally. I was almost blown up by that shelling in Lviv. So they do target civilians. They have targeted civilians on multiple occasions. Whether that was the government telling those soldiers to go out and target civilians, or it was those units acting independently of the military, I mean, I don't know. I have my suspicions, but like, I can't know. But civilians have most certainly been targeted by the Russian military.
Are we allowed to just go out and murder civilians because, oh no, Putin's feelings, everybody, he's a bit intimidated by NATO. Oh no.
I don't know if Lazerpig should have done this debate drunk. I will say that. I understand the inclination, because of this is a stressful stressful situation when you're dealing with somebody like Gonzalo Lira, but we're gonna have a sassy Lazerpig for the whole debate, aren't we?
One of the richest people on the planet is a little bit scared, so therefore he can go out and kill people. Why don't you tell me about the 16,000
killed by the Zelensky and Poroshenko regime in the period 2015 to 2022?
That statistic is just not true, because he says 16,000 people killed by the Zelensky. Okay, I assume he's talking about 2014 up to Russian invasion. That number is the total amount of deaths. That includes military deaths and civilian deaths on both sides of the war. Why is all of them being pinned on Zelensky and none of them pinned on, say, the rebels that Russia's been backing, or the bombing that was done by them, or the soldiers that were killed on both sides? Are we really going to blame Zelensky for Ukrainian soldiers being killed by Russian-backed rebels? I don't understand that.
Why don't you tell me about those 16,000 killed by the Kiev regime?
Also, I remember the number somebody just brought up in Twitch chat was 14,000
in the past 7 years.
Lira, am I allowed to go outside with a shotgun and start killing Christians because I'm a bit threatened by the Westboro Baptist Church?
Is it true or false that the Kiev regime has been constantly shelling the Donbass region before the conflict started on February 24th, and that in total 16,000 Ukrainians were killed by the Kiev regime in the Donbass?
That's not true. The answer to that is no, because it wasn't just the Ukrainians that killed people. like the Ukrainian regime. It was also the rebels. Like, this would be like saying the Japanese killed 80 million people, and that's not true. They were part of the war. They killed people, but it was a lot of different countries that ended up bringing the world to that astronomical death toll.
Shelling the Donbass, the vast majority of all of the shelling that's happened has occurred on the border where all the fighting is. They're not shooting like deep into Donetsk.
This was before. Number one, that's a lie, because currently the Kiev regime, the Zelensky regime, is shelling the city of Donetsk.
Wait, why are you saying, you're saying currently, but before you were talking 2014 to 2022. You can see maps of where all of the artillery, you can see, well, let me finish, can I please finish my, can I finish my one sentence? You can go right now and you can Google, shell strike map Donbass, or you can Google artillery strike map Donbass or whatever, and you can see where all of the shells have fallen. They're all on the border where the conflict is happening. Ukraine is not firing arms into these cities.
Donetsk, in the middle of the city of Donetsk, where there are no military, it's only civilians, and they continue doing this during the conflict. That's what the Kiev regime has been doing. Now, before the conflict started, for the 7 years.
No, I even said before that this debate would almost immediately turn into, if we start bringing up all the crimes that Russia's committed, it's immediately just going to be a debate about the Donetsk children. The Donetsk children are being targeted, while also ignoring the vast majority of the casualties which have been inflicted on Ukraine by Russia. It feels almost like, what's a comparison? It'd be like comparing French crimes during the Second World War to German crimes. The French committed war crimes during the Second World War, absolutely. But it's just like on an insurmountable scale. So much more.
Years between 2015 and 2022, the Kiev regime was indiscriminately shelling the Donbass region, resulting in the deaths of 16,000 civilians. So, Lazerpig, you're talking about 7,000 casualties, civilian casualties during the current conflict, but you're neglecting the 16,000 that were.
Did he just say 7,000? Wait.
So, Lazerpig, you're talking about 7,000 casualties, civilian casualties.
Why is he using the 7,000? Does he actually believe the 7,000 number? I've heard this from other people as well. It is not 7,000. 7,000 is like the official UN number. That number is a gross underestimate. I had this discussion with Spike Cohen yesterday. I love that Gonzalo Lira. Everybody who died from 2014 to 2022 was a Donetsk child murdered by Zelensky's bare hands. But all of the killing that Russia's done, I don't know, just 7,000. It's like half. Even though the violence is on a much greater scale and millions more people are affected, it's only 7,000. That's the number. Like, why is he underestimating it so heavily?
During the current conflict, but you're neglecting the 16,000 that were indiscriminately butchered by the Kiev regime. Why don't you talk about that, Lazerpig? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I love the fact that we're not even half an hour into this discussion and you're already trying to force this black and white fallacy on us. I mean, you've answered the question, right? That said, ignore evil. That is false. Putin did not invade Ukraine because of that. He might
because
have.
Of what?
He might have claimed that he did.
Okay.
If you give me 2 seconds here, I mean, because it's. Sorry, I had something written down here. Yeah, because the thing is, as Russian tanks were massing on the border of Ukraine, just prior to this invasion, Putin did this
in 2015, in 2016, and 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and the first months of 2022. 16,000 people were killed by the Kiev regime, even though there was supposed to be a ceasefire brokered by the Minsk II agreements.
Those ceasefires were violated. Oh, this is such a shit show.
It was not violated by the Russians.
It absolutely was violated by both sides. Nobody held
shelling their own people.
Nobody held to either of the Minsk Accords. For these 16,000 dead numbers, are you trying to claim that these are all civilians? Just curious, so I can get an understanding of this.
As I understand it, yes, it is. As I understand it, something like 900 of them were children under the age of 10.
Okay, the idea that all of these were children, I'm sorry, that all of these were civilians is not true. I don't know where you've even pulled that from. Even the 16,000 number is a bit high. Well, you say, okay.
So you're denying the reporting on the ground of people who have been there and have watched the shelling, the indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas by the Kiev regime from 2015 to 2022.
It's an active civil war that's being supported on the Russian side. Of course, there are going to be casualties.
There was the Minsk II agreement
that were violated by both sides. The Minsk II agreements were violated by both sides. They were never.
The 14,000 number is like a total casualty number. I don't even know.
The Minsk II agreements, I think, barely.
What is even? We're gonna get nowhere in this conversation. I might not even watch the whole.
Even got off the ground.
Did Russia violate the sovereignty of Ukraine prior to February 24th, 2022? Yes.
Yes, by invading Crimea and stealing the Crimea Peninsula. Yes.
So that was in 2014.
Yes, you said before 2022. So yes.
Okay, fair enough. Between 2015 and 2022, did they do so?
Yes, they did by having active military members on the ground in the Donbass, which is internationally recognized.
And in Crimea, like just the continued holding and occupation of Crimea is a violation of Ukrainian sovereignty.
Like private military contractors and NATO personnel that were in Ukraine?
No, those were actual Russian troops, and Putin has since admitted that.
Part of that 16,000 dead
includes... Really? Where? I'd love to see that.
Wait, I love that now Gonzalo Lira is like asking for evidence. Wait, so when like Destiny needs evidence for like the fact that NATO's trying to assassinate him, it's like, I don't know, I know a guy, I'll tell you later. But then when they, okay, whatever. I don't know if I expected like standards of ethic, standards of performance here, or like high standards here. I don't know what exactly I was expecting.
Part of that 16,000 dead includes actual Russian troops on the ground. And yes, of course,
really?
they call it what, do you want to see the bodies?
No, show me some evidence. You're making a claim that everybody who knows the conflict, and I know the conflict because I am here, everybody who knows this conflict knows that that's a lie.
Shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. Look, I really don't like the idea. I'm here so I know. I've had a million conversations with people about Ukraine. I really try to never pull the card unless it's something I directly need my experience on the ground. I find it to be pretty pretentious.
Have you gone and looked at all the troops?
OHCHR report. You can look at the UN report, and it will from 2014 to 2016, it will dictate 3,000 civilian deaths on both sides.
Okay, so the issue is to return to the structure of this. Putin invaded Ukraine, and these are true.
Now wait, now that Lazerpig is citing the UN, telling him he's wrong. Now we're just moving on. Okay.
Putin invaded Ukraine.
Now we're just moving on. That Lazerpig's like, oh, you want a source? Here's a source. UN, like, okay. Anyway, next question. Okay, whatever.
Number one, the constant shelling of ethnic Russians in the Donbass since 2014. Number two, the Kiev regime figures.
Gonzalo Lira, the famed Kharkiv resident living in the Netherlands.
I believe is the Netherlands. Which is something like 11.4. I know the Netherlands because I live there, and so I pay more attention to their economic data than other countries.
I think he says lived there, like he at one point lived there.
There's the Kiev regime figures, rather, calling for the ethnic cleansing of all Russians from the Donbass and Ukraine generally. Number three, NATO expansion into Ukraine with the likelihood of nuclear weapons on Russia's doorstep, which was considered an existential threat by the Russians. Is any of these statements false?
Yes.
All of them are false.
Which
yes.
one?
Constant shelling of ethnic Russians in the Donbass, that statement is so misleading that it is false.
That is true.
Kiev regime figures calling for ethnic cleansing of all Russians, that is also false.
Dude, I gotta say, like, if he's like Kiev regime figures, what does that even mean? Somebody who supports the Ukrainian government? Somebody who's like a top level Ukrainian government official? What is a Kiev regime figure? Like, quote the person. Like, we got to know who the individual person is. I'm sure there's people in Ukraine who have called for horrific things towards Russians. That's terrible. But the Zelensky government is run by Zelensky, a native Russian-speaking Jew, right? So, I mean, what, are they going to ethnically cleanse Zelensky out of the country? Like, how does that even work? Well, the people that I met in Eastern Ukraine, the people who were the Russian speakers, they're all like Ukrainian soldiers, and I don't like. I would need to see more specifics about who are the figures calling for this ethnic cleansing.
Does not make it
NATO expansion
false.
into Ukraine with the likelihood of nuclear weapons on Russia's doorstep? I mean, the Baltics are in NATO. We don't have nuclear weapons up there, so that's also false. So all three of these statements are false.
Zelensky.
Do you want us to answer, or is this just like you giving a lecture?
Because I know, and you're lying.
Oh, well. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. Why am I even here to talk if you're going to say that I'm lying? What's the point of this?
Because you are lying.
Wait, okay, I'm just curious. What is the point of this conversation? Just talk to me, human to human.
This point of my conversation is to determine whether you are ignorant or evil.
He actually said it out loud. He actually said it out loud. What's the point? Because I need to find out if you're Hitler or you're a knuckle dragger. That's the only two options. Hitler or a knuckle dragger. Because if you don't agree with me, you're evil or stupid. By the way, NATO's gonna murder me. Do you need proof? Nah, you don't need proof. It's just happening. Cloudflare, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know the specifics, but somebody that knows the beeps and boops of tech told me I'm gonna be murdered by NATO. Oh my God. Dude, this guy is a clown.
That's the point of this conversation.
Okay, so this isn't an actual conversation on any of these matters. This is just kind of like you wanted to reach out and kind of preach.
Trying to find out if NATO supporters, such as both of you, are ignorant or evil.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you're preaching.
Okay.
You're a virtue signaling little loser.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
Define evil.
The opposite of the good.
Define good.
The opposite of evil.
Okay.
What is... Okay.
Oh. I'm not really sure where to go with that. It is the way it is because it is the way it is, and I say it the way it is, you know. Therefore, I define evil as a duck because a duck is evil.
Okay. Did Kiev regime
Ducks
figures
reproduce
call
by
for the ethnic
fucking
cleansing
raping each
of
other.
all
Therefore, that is
Russians
evil.
from
Therefore,
Donbass?
evil is ducks. I'm not a duck. Therefore, I'm not equal.
Did the Kiev regime figures call for the ethnic cleansing of all ethnic Russians from the Donbass and Ukraine generally? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
Yes, they did.
Lazerpig,
There
I love
are
you, buddy.
videos of people of
Good luck with this.
the right sector.
But
if you quit,
I don't know if he's been knocked out a few times and he's having some stroke issues or what, but I think he's got some.
Problem.
I think he's got some problems going on there, neurologically.
I have got problems.
I have my.
He's right. Destiny's leaving. He's like, I can't do it. He's just here to preach. He's just leaving.
These are internet blood sports rules, Destiny. The guy who rage quits is the guy who loses.
Oh.
Not if the other person's like psychotic and they're not having a discussion and they're just using preach. If I invited Gonzo onto my program and I said, I'm here to find out if you molest children or rape women. That's the purpose of today's talk. Like, those are the only two options, obviously. Obviously, you would be like, well, no, I don't do either of those. I don't believe I molest children or rape women. So I think I would like to say, add a little nuance and say neither of those things. And if the purpose of this talk is just to prove that I'm evil or stupid, I don't want to participate in it because this is stupid. And not to mention the fact that, like, we're just going through a PowerPoint presentation. This isn't a discussion. This is a lecture. This is what this feels like. We need you to debate Gonzalo, please. I would debate Gonzalo, like, absolutely. But I would not tune in and be a part of a Gonzalo Lira lecture. I would need a moderator, like modern day debates, to actually like host it. I wouldn't participate in whatever this is.
Okay, well,
the thing
it looks like I'm the loser here. I think stepping into this call made me a loser, so I'm sorry, my dude. Good luck. Don't get killed.
I have been.
Okay, this is why would I let him just say random retarded shit in front of my audience for?
Oh, I was muted. Oops. Well, it looks like Destiny dropped, so we're gonna have to move from here. Okay, we're going on from this point.
These are internet blood sports rules, Destiny. The guy who rage quits is the guy who loses.
Okay,
the
well,
thing is,
it looks like I'm the loser here. I think stepping into this call made me a loser, so I'm sorry, my dude. Good luck. Don't get killed.
I have the one question that I have always been consistently asked is, why am I doing this? Why am I here? I have nothing to gain from this, and honestly, I mean, I've seen your previous videos, Lira. I've seen your previous roundtable discussions and your opinions on Twitter. You have a very pro-Russian attitude, and you have remained.
No, I don't. I have.
Yes, he
I'm
does.
in the face of what I would call
Yes, he
overwhelming
does.
evidence
Look
to
at him. Can't even
contrary.
listen. Can't even deal
I
with
don't
talking.
fully believe I can convince you to change your mind, nor
I
think you
think
can
that
change mine.
you're basically saying that
And I
you know
think
that your
the
positions
same
are false, and
applies
therefore
to
you
our
can't stand the
respect.
fact that you are supporting the wrong side in a conflict that is clearly between goodness and the endurance of the Ukraine nation and people and the destruction of the Ukraine nation.
See, I stand for goodness. Like, what is this? What is this nonsense? This sounds like a Marvel movie. You're stupid and are evil, while I represent goodness and light and freedom and justice and the endurance of the people. Like, what is this Marvel nonsense, right? Why he's painting himself like he's a warrior for truth and justice in a world of deceit. It's like, come on, dog. You're here giving a PowerPoint presentation, lecturing somebody about why they're stupid and or evil, and shouting them down anytime they want to add any nuance to any of the little narrative traps that you've laid out for them.
I'll get onto that in a little
but
second.
actually, your actions by your support of the NATO war, it just shows that you are basically all about destroying Ukraine.
Why does he talk? What is that really even honest? Is that honest on any level to say, since you support Ukraine, and its fight against Russia, you're all about burning Ukraine to the ground. You want everybody to die. That's obviously, instead of it maybe being that you think that Ukraine's democracy is worth protecting, or that Ukraine should be able to run their own affairs, or that the Russians are acting in barbaric nature. Instead, it means that you want them to die. Wow, man. A very honest person. Very honest. How many PowerPoint slides does he have? They're on slide 3. It keeps going. I see there's like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I see the 10th one. How many slides are there even here?
I think the bargain your Pinot Noir for this one, I think. Look, I don't believe I can convince you to change your mind. Nor I think
I'm not interested in being convinced. I want to hear your position.
Then why are you even talking to them? Like, I talk to everybody, and I have to, if I want to engage in good faith, talk to them as if I always have the ability to have my mind changed. I can always have my mind changed. It's just that Gonzalo Lira is not convincing whatsoever, and Gonzalo Lira, from his perspective, will never let anyone change his mind about Ukraine. It would never happen. That's why, in advance of this debate, he had to tell his audience, people I'm about to talk to are either stupid or they're evil. And they want to murder me. They're part of the side that wants to kill me. He has to poison the well so nobody in his audience during his lecture has any bad thoughts like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be bombing the Ukrainians.
I still respect audience here. So I'm going to be with you. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to lecture.
So
I'm here
completely out
of morbid curiosity.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm genuinely curious what you have to ask me, and I have some questions of my own. But I do have other things I need to do tonight. I'm not going to sit here all night. I was expecting to be here for maybe an hour and a half, potentially. And then I was going to let you and Destiny do your wonderful
Destiny
thing.
chickened out. He rage quit like a little bitch.
Well, Destiny has left, and to be honest, I don't blame him. You're not acting civil.
I am acting civil, but
No, you're not. You're saying you're either evil or stupid, and you're not allowed to add any nuance to any of the true or false questions I'm going to ask you. Now, do you like to beat children because it's fun, or because you need to get stress out of your system? This is what the conversation's become.
I'm calling out liars when I hear lies.
These are lines from Russian propaganda. These are lines from the 5,000.
This is the truth. This is the truth. And you claiming that it's Russian propaganda doesn't change the fact that it's true.
But it is Russian propaganda.
So what? The Russians can say that the sky is blue. Is that Russian propaganda? Or are you going to ask me to define what is blue?
Do you not understand what propaganda is?
Yes, I know exactly what propaganda is. Do you know what is true and what is false?
You know what?
What?
I think we can have a very reasonable sounding
Here it is
discussion.
right here. Quick Google search. This is all it took. It took me like 5 seconds. They even spell the words right. Look at this. 14,000 deaths Donbass. This is just straight from Wikipedia. It's not even that hard to look up. The overall number of estimated deaths in the war in Donbass, which started on April 6, 2014, was 14,200 to 14,400 through December 31st, December 20, including non-combat military deaths. This includes non-combat military deaths, but this is overall number of deaths. This includes soldiers and deaths on both sides. Him saying that it was 16,000 and these were all murdered by Ukraine is being incredibly deceptive about civilian death tolls in the Donbass.
Points. But let me ask you, going back to the previous
There are
point.
3 points.
Let
on
me
the
go.
outline.
Let me go back to
Ask
the previous
tell me
point
if they are true
you
or
brought up.
false.
Okay.
Mhm.
Why do you think Russia holds a monopoly on morality?
Nobody holds a
Why is it
monopoly on
Russia that
morality.
gets to decide what is right and just in this war?
Nobody gets to decide what's right and just, but I do have a judgment, and I want to hear your judgment. Are any of these statements false?
These
It's
statements
very
are false.
clear,
The
Lazerpig.
final statement, NATO expansion into Ukraine, I would potentially agree with that. I think Putin is very scared of that. I mean, there was nothing to ever state that Ukraine was ever interested in joining NATO. They were interested in joining the
The
EU.
2008 declaration by NATO at Budapest said explicitly that Georgia and Ukraine should join NATO.
Should join NATO.
And they
I
created
believe-
the conditions where that would
I
happen.
believe,
The station at Yavoriv
honey,
was,
please,
don't call me honey, piggy.
Honey!
please.
Oh my god. Oh god, the sassy homos coming out of Lazerpig. I love it. And I say that as a nice thing.
Piggy,
I
are we
believe
going to be civil or are we going to
should give me.
This is getting weird. Honey, piggy, oh piggy poo. Come on, this is getting weird.
Free wine. I believe that Tesco should give me free wine, but they don't. It's not up to NATO if or not Ukraine joins. It's up to Ukraine. And Zelensky made it very
So
clear
it's
when he started.
okay if there are nuclear weapons in Cuba threatening the United States? I mean, if Cuba decides to join the Chinese military alliance and install nuclear weapons on Cuban soil,
If there was a threat, by the way, there's no agreement being put forward that would mean that NATO nukes are placed in. Okay, why? And by the way, would it be right for NATO to invade Belarus because because Belarus said they're going to host Russian nuclear weapons? Would that be right? I would say no. I would say that would not be right. That doesn't mean the placing of nuclear weapons would be right either. But as far as I know, I haven't seen any statements from Zelensky saying we need to place NATO nukes in Ukraine on the border with Russia. I haven't seen that. There could be a defensive agreement written up with Ukraine defended by maybe a few NATO countries or possibly entered into NATO that does not see nukes placed within them, within Ukraine. There could be a million different agreements reached, which leads to nukes not being placed within them. I don't believe there's nuclear weapons in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Are there nuclear weapons in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania? They're on the border with Russia. They're part of NATO. Nukes in Estonia. Are there nukes in Estonia? Does somebody in chat tell me? No, I didn't think so. So I think that it could be 100% a plausible scenario that that Ukraine becomes part of NATO or becomes part of some defensive structure outside of NATO, and it does not end with them having nuclear weapons in their country. But it's not that crazy that Ukraine wants to join NATO or wants to join a defensive structure, since the Russians have shown, not only historically but also in modern times, that they're very willing to invade and slaughter the Ukrainian nation.
at the United States, that should be no problem whatsoever, right?
What has that got to do with anything?
Because the Zelensky regime was saying in January of 2022 that it would be a great idea for NATO to put nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And none of the other leaders at the Munich conference disputed him. They were basically tacitly agreeing that it
Who said that?
would put nuclear weapons into,
Anything.
because the Zelensky regime
Really? Zelensky said nukes in Ukraine. Can we look this up? If that's true, that is pretty crazy. That wouldn't mean that nukes would necessarily go in Ukraine. because as a Ukrainian, as Zelensky, it's not that crazy they would want nukes in Ukraine, since nukes in Ukraine would stop an invasion. That doesn't necessarily mean NATO should do it. Zelensky, nukes in Ukraine. Oh, wait, I think I know exactly the statement he's talking about. I know exactly what statement he's talking about. He was in the NATO conference, or he was at some conference. I forget the exact conference, but he was basically asked about nukes in Ukraine, because historically, Ukraine gave up their nukes in return for the Budapest Memorandum, where Russia and the United States said they would respect Ukraine's territorial integrity because they were giving up these weapons of mass destruction that they could obviously use to defend themselves. The Ukrainians didn't want to keep them necessarily because they were very, very expensive to keep in the country. Therefore, recently, before the war started, Zelensky made a statement along the lines of like, hey, we gave up nukes under the idea that, we wouldn't be invaded. Now we've been invaded. Maybe us giving up nukes were a mistake. I think that's what he's talking about. If that's what he's talking about, though, that does not mean that NATO is on the fast track to if Ukraine joins, there's going to be nuclear weapons in Ukraine, or if Ukraine wins, that nuclear weapons are going to end up in Ukraine. That doesn't mean that whatsoever. It's Zelensky kind of just like acknowledging the historical fact that at one point Ukraine had nukes, and if they kept them, it probably would mean that they would be impossible to invade like most nuclear armed states.
He was saying in January of 2022 that it would be a great idea for NATO to put nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And
did he say it would be a great idea? I could have sworn he was acknowledging Zelensky nukes Ukraine, NATO. Let's see. Ukraine may seek nuclear weapons if left out of NATO from diplomat. Well, that's different from what he's talking about. And if they don't have any other defensive alliance, I'm not that surprised they would. Where is it? Does anybody know where the statement is? What the fuck is nextbigfuture.com? If anybody has the link to the original statement, please link it to me.
None of the other leaders at the Munich conference disputed him.
Oh, I can just look up Munich conference. Munich conference, Zelensky nukes. There we go. Bell Friends, I don't know what this is. Do we have anything that's like a respectable news? Respectable news conference? Okay, Guardian is some, I at least know what the Guardian is. I don't like the Guardian. Nuke. Nothing comes up. Yeah, no, somebody's just gonna have to link it to me.
They were basically tacitly agreeing that it was a good idea.
Has any
I don't think that could even be implied from what he said.
two nuclear since the end of the Second World War, has any two nuclear nations gone to war?
They came close in '62 in Cuba.
They very much did, yes.
But
Why?
they
Did they?
Why?
Wait, I thought Gonzalo Lira loved yes or no questions. Where's this hatred for? Wait, now he wants nuance for the yes or no questions? The true or false questions? Wait, what's this? What's this I've discovered? Hypocrisy?
But did they? They did not.
Why did they almost go to war? We all know the answer to the question of did they go to war or not. They obviously didn't. Why
Yes,
did they
of course
almost
they
go to
did.
war? That's the salient question. You're avoiding the salient question because you know the answer, and the answer is something that you don't want to face. So I'm asking.
I don't want
you
to. I don't want to
face it.
face. I don't want to face this. The idea that, in response to NATO moving nukes closer to Russia, Russia moved nukes closer to America in Cuba, and that caused tensions to rise between.
It almost
the two
caused a nuclear
countries.
war, didn't it?
It almost did, but it did not.
Mhm. Yeah, that's not the point. It could have. And a lot of people who were there said that there was a possibility of like something like 15 minutes, the possibility of a nuclear conflict because of what Russia had done, the Soviet Union rather, had done in '62 in Cuba. So it's
Yes.
not something irrelevant.
So, what was your point?
So are any of these statements true or false? Answer them.
Didn't they already answer this? They've answered this like twice now. The first one's wrong. The second one, like, you need to be more specific. I'm sure there's somebody in Kiev. Oh, by the way, I love that he used the Russian spelling. Totally not pro-Russian, by the way. But I'm sure there's somebody in Kiev who has said disgusting things about them, but I don't think that Zelensky's government has any plans whatsoever to engage in ethnic cleansing of Russian speakers. The dude's a Russian speaker himself, a native Russian speaker. I don't understand what this is meant to prove, outside of, like, there are people in Ukraine who are bigoted. And the third one, NATO expansion into Ukraine with the likelihood of nuclear weapons on Russia's doorstep was an existential threat to Russia. When you say an existential threat to Russia, does that mean, like, if this happens, like, Russia could cease to exist? I don't think that's true. I do understand that that comes with security problems in Russia, but it's largely the fault of Russia. If you keep invading a country and keep brutalizing that country is going to look for others to help them against you. Like, that's just naturally what's going to happen. And Russia has been abusing Ukraine for hundreds of years. So this is just like the end result of their historical abuses towards the nation.
They're all false.
They're all true.
Okay. So your opinion...
Wow, can we move on to the next slide now?
They're true.
No, it's not an opinion.
My opinion is they're false.
Oh my
There is a
God.
difference between a statement of fact and an opinion.
But the first one's just not true.
There are no opinions here. These are all factual.
And not to mention, like, why is he knows that number on the first one has to be wrong. He must know, because there's no way that he thinks that, like, magically in the 8 years of fighting, only the pro-Russia people died in Ukraine's horrific assault on the Donbass. And the Donbass people, they didn't torture anybody. They didn't murder anybody. Oh, all the military casualties, that's not included. Like, he's just being dishonest. And he's taken away all nuance that could have happened in a conversation like.
Actually accurate.
I would disagree, but let's agree to disagree.
You would disagree, okay?
Does that make me ignorant or evil?
So let's, it makes you not ignorant. And there are two.
Okay, so there's a third option.
So he's evil.
So you give me two
evil.
options: am I ignorant or evil? And you've already dictated my position, which I've said
that
I don't
distasteful
shit
if
about
we're
any.
going to be honest. But the fact is,
Right.
I want to show you that you are wrong. And from there, it's your
You
decision.
don't want to hear my
to
judgment.
continue
You don't want to
be
hear my opinion. You
ignorant.
want to frame me.
Okay.
This is what I feared. This is honestly
This
what
is
I
what
feared
you
coming out here.
feared. Uh-huh.
I feared that this
Why
would just
in your
be you
DMs
shouting at
did
me.
you ask me in the DMs that you and I swapped if I was
I said-
scared of you?
Are you scared of
I
me?
found that very amusing.
Are you scared of me?
Not really.
You're acting like it.
I don't think so, because you're
Kind of is like I bet you a large sum of gold doubloons, okay, a very large sum of gold, that Gonzalo Lira would never ever agree to a moderated debate on any program with Lazerpig, Destiny, me, or really anyone of any respect on this issue. He might, like, drag them into a room and start doing like a PowerPoint presentation, something like this, where he's yelling over them saying you can only answer true or false. You can either answer that you're a pedophile or a rapist. You're the only two options. Like, he'll do that because he can virtue signal and he's not being challenged in any way. He doesn't want to be challenged. But if he actually, like, had a set up moderated debate where a moderator would come in and be like, hey, you have to let him talk, and hey, okay, it's your time to ask questions, I don't think he could deal with that. And I don't think he would ever agree to that. I think he would be
unwilling
And he doesn't even need to, like, choose. He can just do it off of modern day debates. They would love to host something like that. Oh my God.
to answer true or false statements.
I'm
Answer the
not
statements.
going to be pushed into a black and white fallacy.
These are accurate statements. Anybody who knows about the conflict can look through them and say, that's true, that's true, that's true.
But we already looked through the first one is already wrong, and also cherry picking, because he's not showing the full picture, missing the forest for the trees.
If you don't want to admit that
What
they're
makes them
true,
true?
then you want to remain consciously ignorant. Or
What
you're
makes them
evil.
true? What makes them true?
The Kiev regime figures calling for the ethnic cleansing of all Russians from the Donbass and Ukraine generally. This has been open policy by the right sector and the Azov and the other different militia groups.
So Kiev regime figures, it turns out to not be Ukrainian-like figures close to Zelensky, like Zelensky's right-hand man or something like that. They end up to be far-right individuals in the military, specific far-right individuals. A lot of them, by the way, who speak Russian. Those are the ones who want to ethnically cleanse all the Russians out. Why would I listen to that and say, wow, so now the Ukrainian government, as a policy, is going to ethnically cleanse Russians? Because I have no reason to believe that's the case.
Within the Kiev regime. This is known fact. And they have said so repeatedly, openly. It's no trick at all to Google these videos, and you hear them say that they want the destruction of all ethnic Russians in the Donbass and in Ukraine generally.
The Azov Legion.
Right sector.
Right. Excuse me. So it's not part of Zelensky's actual. It
is part
policy.
of the Zelensky regime because Zelensky has outlawed all political parties except the ones that are calling for the ethnic cleansing of ethnic Russians.
That's not true. That's just a lie. Well, can he tell the truth about anything? Zelensky did not ban all the political parties that didn't want to murder all the Russians and said, I'm going to only keep all the ones that want to kill them all. Stab me for speaking Russian, everyone. Someone assassinate me. He didn't do that. That didn't happen.
From the Donbass region. And by the way, those first two reasons, the constant shelling of ethnic Russians and the calling for ethnic cleansing, those are the two reasons that NATO went to war over Serbia and destroyed Serbia and bombed Kosovo. Those were the alleged reasons. And these are happening now in Ukraine. The fact that you are unwilling to admit that they're true leads me to conclude that you'd also oppose what NATO did in Serbia. Do you oppose what NATO did in Serbia? Do you think that the Serbs should have gone ahead and ethnically cleansed whomever they were ethnically cleansing? I'm not that familiar with the conflict.
Then why are you bringing it up? There's no ethnic cleansing happening in Ukraine.
Of course not. That'd be a ridiculous notion to take.
Okay, so you think it is reasonable to prevent an ethnic cleansing of an entire people from a region that is adjacent to yours?
Of course.
That's what NATO did in Serbia. And so that's what the Russians are doing insofar as Ukraine is concerned.
There's no ethnic cleansing. Nobody of any respect would say there's ethnic cleansing. You cannot claim to know everything about the conflict and then lie and lie and lie and lie. And every time you open your fucking mouth, you just lie and lie and lie. And you don't present evidence. He doesn't present evidence for anything. He'll just put up these true and false statements, not need to be sorted for evidence. But then when they make claims, of course, he needs evidence for that. When they ask true or false questions, when they ask yes or no questions, oh, no, then Gonzo will add the nuance. This is such a bad faith discussion, man.
Among other things.
That is why I support Ukraine. I go back to your other points.
You support Ukraine even though
right-wing
ethnic
cabal.
Russians who are Ukrainian are openly targeted for extermination?
That's not happening. There's no exterminate. There's no fucking Auschwitz in Ukraine. And it just keeps escalating. Next, he's going to say, so you support the second Holocaust? You really support Pol Pot too? You support Hitler too? It's just going to keep escalating. It's going to turn from, oh, I don't think the Russians should invade Ukraine. You want to murder every Russian? That's crazy. I can't believe you said that.
The Azov Legion was founded by ethnic Russians.
True. That is true.
You and I know that that's not true.
That is true. What do you mean? Every Azov person, I've not met many, but the few that I did, everyone spoke Russian. Every single one of them. They're based around Mariupol in Kharkiv. That's where they started from football hooligan clubs from the locals. They are hardcore Ukrainian nationalists, but I think the most of them speak Russian.
Founded by hooligans from the Medalist Football Club. They were financed by Igor Kolomoisky.
They were, but they also spoke Russian.
And they were set up as a paramilitary organization, funded and supported and trained by NATO. Same thing happened with the right sector after 2015.
Well, if they're trained and funded by NATO, then I'm sorry, but they're shit. Because I've seen them fight.
They're dead now.
Their spacing is awful.
Dead, but whatever.
Their tactics are awful. They've got no coordination. They look absolutely nothing like a NATO unit. They look like a rabble. They look like a militia. And that's exactly how they act. Because, let's be honest,
we're talking about those
they're not
people
NATO
who
funded.
You need them
to be NATO funded because it fits your narrative. But we both
They
know
are
that's
NATO
complete bullshit.
funded and trained.
Don't raise your voice at me, young man.
He's not a young man.
What are
He's
you
not
gonna
a young
do?
man.
Squeal some more?
Yeah, I'm a pig. Oink,
I
bitch.
know. Oh, buddy. I knew that this was going to devolve into this.
I mean, if you want to take a step back and you want to have a
we're going to
proper
go on to the
discussion.
next slide.
Okay.
Nothing has been proven, and we're just moving on. Thank goodness. Putin invaded Ukraine because Western biological weapons facilities. Oh my God! Does he actually believe that? He's
going to
insane.
go step by step.
Does he actually
and
believe the
with you or
bioweapons
without
thing?
you, I'm going to roll with this. The second
Okay.
part of the reasons that Putin invaded Ukraine, true or false? Western biological weapon facilities were in Ukraine. Is that true or false?
False.
False.
If you
It's
found
true.
them,
It's false.
It's true.
if you found them.
They were found, and not only were they found, Victoria Nuland in congressional testimony at the Senate in front of Marco Rubio, who asked her the question. Victoria Nuland is the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs in the United States.
Can I be? I don't know why he needs to be so dishonest or believe this nonsense in particular. I don't know why he keeps falling upon like the easiest stuff to just disprove. There are biological facilities in Ukraine. There's also biological facilities in Poland, biological facilities in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, basically every country in Europe. Same in Canada, same in the United States, same in Mexico, same in many countries. Biological research happens in countries all across the globe. He has yet to prove, and Russia has yet to prove, that any of the biological facilities that do exist in Ukraine are being used to develop weapons that'll be used against Russia. It is one thing to do bio research, is another thing to develop biological weapons to be used against Russia. These are two separate things, and that last thing hasn't been proven. And that's what Russia was alleging. That remains unproven.
And she admitted to Western biological weapons facilities in Ukraine because she was afraid that the Russians would find them and potentially use the material that they had accumulated in these biological weapons
Not what she
facilities.
said. I don't know what else I need to tell you. I don't know what I need to say, but that just not true. She didn't admit that they had Western biological weapons facilities to make weapons to use against her. That just, no, it just didn't happen.
Who, Rubio? Really?
In congressional testimony, it's not Marco Rubio, who is a neocon in favor of this war, but rather Victoria Nuland,
Marco Rubio.
who is supervising the whole Ukraine situation for the State Department. She admitted it in congressional testimony.
Right. So what happened, as far as I'm aware, is that they found a hospital. They took some pictures of it
They
and said,
found
this is a biolab.
26
Can he shut the fuck up and let Lazerpig talk? Oh my God, he loves the sound of his own voice.
separate installations in Ukraine.
And was any weapons found there?
Well, no, because they're secret.
I can't. He's not a real person. He's not a real person. I refuse to believe that this is a real person. Well, was any evidence found? No, because it's secret. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Okay, they're secret. They're mysterious. So again,
what do you think that
we
they're
devolved
doing
into
there?
big
He's not
government
real.
Victoria
conspiracy.
Nuland was worried about that they would fall
Zelensky
into
can
Russian
magically
hands.
move missiles from a bio facility. It's a bio facility, everyone.
Burns
Trust me,
is an
it's not a
immoral,
hospital lab.
morally corrupt, bankrupt man.
If
It's a
Victoria Nuland was worried about the Russians getting their hands on the material there, then obviously
Okay, you know what? We can just listen to what Victoria Nuland said. Okay, here is something I've found. Let's see. Do.
Does Ukraine
Here it is. We can just listen to what she has to say right here.
have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
What I think got some people fired up is when she said we're worried that the Russians will get a hold of these facilities, because that implies that there's something in those facilities dangerous. So I don't know if you could shed some light on how there can be things in the lab that are dangerous, but they not be weapons labs.
Yeah, all I would say, Senator, is that, you know, that the danger here, it seems to me, is the capacity the Russians have developed and that they've used in the past, and their, you know, interest in trying to create false narratives here as well. To the best of my knowledge, well, you have to be careful about, you know, any of those substances you've talked about, which you see in public health or research systems around the world for civilian purposes. Well, you have to be careful about that. That is in no way akin to the kind of threats that would be posed by, you know, weapons research and development or weapons facilities.
So she did not say that there was weapons in the facilities, just that there's biological research facilities. The stuff there, if caught by the Russians, could either be used to misrepresent what is going on in Ukraine and or their chemicals, and they could use for dangerous intent. But she didn't say that there were weapons facilities. She didn't. So he's just lying about what Victoria Nuland said. She said that there was biological research facilities. She did not say there was weapons facilities. Big shock. Gonzalo Lira lied again.
It was weapons grade material.
Right.
She didn't say that. She's...
How so?
The Kiev regime was unwilling to abide by the Minsk II peace agreements. Is this true or false?
He can't stop lying. He just can't stop.
I mean, do you also believe that they train
the
bats
Kiev
and birds to
regime
spread
was
disease?
unwilling to abide by Minsk II
Because I mean
peace
that's
agreements.
also
True
in the
or
Russian
false?
claims.
The Kiev regime was unwilling to abide by the Minsk II agreement.
Biological research facilities? I mean, what the fuck do you think they are? Dude, you know how much biological research goes on in the world that are not weapons? There's biological This is like if somebody was like, oh, there's a place in Ukraine that's like, it's a production facility. Oh, I bet they're producing something disgusting. It's a huge country of 44 million people. You don't think they could just be producing teddy bears, or could be producing something completely unrelated? Like, it's like chemical research, biological research, medical research. These are all things that like all countries engage in, right? And they're not all evil Machiavellian plans from the shadows to murder all of the people, right? Why have that shit in Ukraine and not in the US? I'm some shit on the floor because Ukraine has scientists. They have smart scientists. They want to do research. They want to work with international groups in doing research. Technological like transfer between nation state research between is part of the reason why science is developing and moving forward at a faster and faster rate, because of that interconnectedness, that globalism. I did a deep dive on this. Their research facilities doing work with stuff like salmonella. They destroyed all their samples when the war started. That's not too surprising. Okay, dude. Is that really? Do you think that it's like, why isn't all the scientists just working in the United States? Why isn't all the science people just in China and America? No? Why would anyone do science in like another like small kind of backwater mud hut country like Ukraine? That's what it comes off of. Like, yes, other countries do research. Other countries 100% do research. I don't know why that's so insane to think.
Peace agreements, true or false?
That one is actually true.
Yes,
we both know the Minsk agreements were not worth the fucking paper they were written on. Both sides flagrantly violated them all the time.
No, there weren't two sides.
We always knew they were going to be bullshit.
The Germans, the
never
French,
agreed to
the
it.
Ukrainians, and the Russians.
Yeah. It was the Germans and the
Was
French.
the Kiev
and
regime
both sides
about to
felt very
launch
betrayed
an
by it.
invasion of the Donbass? Yes or no? True or false?
False.
It's true, because that's why all of the Ukraine military was concentrated in the area adjacent to the Donbass region. That's why there's a current conflict in that particular region, because that's where the bulk of the frontline troops of the Ukrainian armed forces were stationed. They were preparing for an offensive in mid-March. It's been admitted to by the Pentagon and by other analysts.
I don't trust him, and I don't believe him. There's no way the Ukrainians were planning to do an offensive into the Donbass, because they just didn't have the forces to take it. The army that he's talking about amassed there is not big enough to have taken back the Donbass at the time. It's just not true. They were not planning a massive offensive. Anybody who thinks so, honestly, I think is a fool. Because if you genuinely think that Ukraine was ready to invade and take back tons of, by the way, invade the Donbass, I don't even like it, that they were ready to liberate the Donbass in March of last year, a month before the invasion, considering that the Russians were marching on Kyiv in March, it's just like statistically, just like from how things played out, you know that they didn't have the ability to, and it doesn't make any sense that they would do that. Like, he says the Pentagon admitted to it. Like, does he have a source for this, or is he just going to ask them for sources? Never going to provide sources himself, like he did, like you do for the biological weapons thing. Oh no, his source, he did do one source for that. He just quoted Victoria Nuland and lied about what she said.
Who have looked at the data and satellite pictures previous to the conflict.
Which troops?
Ukrainian Armed Forces troops.
Ukrainian Armed Forces. So not their elites then, not their top elites.
Yes, actually, there were their top elites.
Which ones?
I don't know the specific unit numbers, and that's not the issue. I'm not paying attention to a particular tree. I'm looking at the forest. I'm looking at the forest. Just because I look at a forest and can't identify a particular tree.
You're looking at the forest and you're missing the trees. Can we move on? Because I want to see what else you've got here.
Sure. So you're unwilling to admit that any of these are true.
First one's wrong. First one's just a lie about what Victoria Nuland said. Second one, I mean, like, neither side was willing to abide by it. And the third one's also a lie. So, like, I think 0.5 of these are true.
Except the second point, that the Kiev regime was unwilling to abide by Minsk II peace agreements.
Sure, I'll give you that one.
Okay. And you're saying that there were no biological weapons facilities in Ukraine. Is that true?
There's no evidence. No.
True.
There's biological research facilities. And his quote for Victoria Nuland was a misquote.
Is that what you're saying?
There's no weapons. No weapons have been found.
They were there and they were found.
Suspected?
They were not found. He literally said they weren't found because they were secret. What do you mean? They didn't find shit.
Weapons may have been found. They found a hobby drone. They found a hobby drone with a basket on it and said, "Yes, aha, biological weapon." That's as much evidence as we've seen.
Victoria Nuland admitted to the fact of these biological weapons facilities in Ukraine in sworn congressional testimony.
Right.
So how does that square with you saying that there were no biological weapons at all?
How many slides do you have here?
I have 10.
You have 10. Move on, please.
We're on number 4. No, we're going to move on when you have answered the question.
You already answered them.
All right, give me a second.
I'm disappointed in Destiny. I thought he was made of sterner stuff, but I guess, the blue hair must have fried his brains.
Oh my God, dude, he cannot just lie and misrepresent and try to set up this trap of what was supposed to be a discussion and then whine when people are like, I don't want to participate in this. This is not at all what I thought I signed up for. Bye.
Or maybe it fried his balls.
I don't think it's that at all. I think it's honestly because this isn't really a fair debate, is it? I mean, you're dictating our opinions,
and
no, you're not being fair
about
here.
This conflict.
You're dictating what our opinions are, and every time we refute it, you're not giving us a chance to speak, and you're just saying, "Aha, you're false. You're full of lies. You're full of
false.
You're evil."
I said specific issues, and you have denied them, even though there's.
By the way, I keep seeing discussions like this, right? Discussions with Gonzalo and Lazerpig and Destiny. Oh, thank you. Wait, what's this? Art. Thank you. But I think about like, okay, who's next for me? When I think about like me climbing the ladder of like talking to Russian propagandists, there is nothing higher than this, really. Like you can like, oh, talk to Sergei Lavrov or whatever, but that's not gonna happen. When you talk about like Western speaking Russia supporters, this is basically what they are. They just lie. They are dishonest. They strawman, and this is all you're gonna get. This is the best you're gonna get. I thought there might be more to something here, ideologically or something with like foundations. We can get into theory or like talk about the principles of self-determination. It never goes there. because it's just going to be spreading misinformation about bioweapons that don't exist, or an imaginary invasion of Russia and the Donbass. Just random nonsense. It doesn't get any better than this. And so I think I've given up on the idea that I'm going to find the honest Russia supporter. I'm going to find the one that actually is willing to engage on the bread and butter of the issues, as Gonzalo has shown that he very much does not want to do.
Evidence. And laughing hysterically and rather nervously, I might add, isn't going to change.
That's not me
the
laughing
fact.
hysterically. Laughing is me going, it's just my normal fucking laugh because I'm a weird sideshow freak. Laughing hysterically, we'd be going, they never said I could teach a llama to drive. Well, they were wrong, the fools. That's laughing hysterically.
Uh-huh.
I love Laser. I love him. I love Lazerpig. I love him.
So, is the first statement true or false?
What kind of tree would
It's
you
false. What? I think he would be spruce.
It was funny,
gonna stare at each other all night,
I was
yeah.
told by other people that whenever you threw a fact at Destiny, it completely discombobulates him. And that's why he quit.
be? Why are you going back to Destiny?
Because it's amusing to me. Just as you're gonna be more amusing to me too.
Destiny, unironically, Destiny is not somebody who quits discussions. If he's in too deep, he will sink. But like I have never seen him I just quit because I'm scared. I only have seen him leave discussions if it's literally just knuckle dragging behavior, which Gonzalo, Mr. Lira displayed in the discussion. He can keep coping and saying, oh, they just hate me because they hate me, but this is not an honest back and forth. This is a lecture that he wanted to give to NATO, pro NATO people, quote unquote, and one of them didn't want to participate in that. He wanted to participate in the back and forth.
I saw the podcast that you two were on back when you were Coach Red Pill. Are you still Coach Red Pill?
What's it say in my log line below?
Okay. Well, I saw the podcast where you two together. I will honestly admit, I have never seen two men in the throes of passion down each other's throats more than the last time I was at the Las Vegas
Trying to insinuate homosexuality between myself and Destiny, it's kind of trivial,
No,
it doesn't really get a rise out of it.
terrible to that.
Okay. Next, the conflict in Ukraine is in fact a proxy war between the United States and NATO against Russia.
I understand what Laser. Look, I'm sympathetic to Laser. He's given up on engaging with him, and now he just wants to mess with them. See how much he can poke him. That's what it feels like now.
The United States and NATO is regime change in Russia and the physical breakup of the Russian Federation into several smaller countries. That is the destruction of the Russian nation. Are either of these statements true or false?
The conflict in Ukraine is in fact a proxy war between the US and NATO against Russia. I mean, I don't really care if you call it a proxy war or not, but calling it a proxy war, in my opinion, is dishonest because it makes it feel like the American NATO West is puppeting Ukraine against their will or against their best intentions and using them without their consent in this kind of puppeteer match against Russia. When what's happening is Ukraine is fighting off an invasion and they're asking for help from the West, and the West is providing that help, right? So I don't like the definition of it a proxy war because I feel like it takes away the autonomy of the people who made the decisions to fight this war till the bitter end. The Ukrainians have. And as for the idea that the goal of the US and NATO is regime change, I think they would like that. I think they absolutely would like to see Putin go. I think if Putin went away, that would be good. I don't necessarily think better though. But I don't know if the West is actively pursuing that, as in, i.e., we are hiring people to assassinate him, or we're funding these deep ops, special ops, rebel group, something like that. I don't know if they're actively pursuing. Something can be something that the West wants, but isn't an explicitly stated goal. I've heard a few people kind of hint at the idea, but I haven't seen really a lot of moves or actions by the West to really try to seek out that change. Outside of maybe the idea that one day the Russian people will get up and get And as for the physical breakup of the Russian Federation into several smaller countries, destruction of the Russian nation, ultimately that's up to the people who live in Russia, Ichkeria, Chechnya, live in Tuva, or all these other locations, all ultimately up to them, not the West. Would they like Russia to break up? Probably. But Russia also wants the United States to break up. I mean, that's not too surprising. I don't know if they're actively pursuing it outside of the idea. Then again, the United States continuing to drain Russia through their idiotic invasion of Ukraine could lead to it. It's like I've seen like a few statements from like a general here or a general there of like Putin needs to go, or like, yeah, I want to see Putin go, but nothing that like no changes in US policy that shows them actively pursuing.
I have no idea.
You know.
I have absolutely no idea.
Is that
Your mic's being weird. Seems like the noise gate is too sensitive, but I'm a boomer on these things. Like the noise gate is too. I don't know what to do. I think I have no. The mic mutes itself for a bit. God, I thought I fixed this. Okay, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I'll try to fix it. I don't know.
That's how you're going to play it? That you're a babe in the woods and know nothing?
Yeah.
So why are you commenting on the Ukrainian war?
You're framing the whole thing as ignorant or evil. So regardless of what, unless I agree with you at every point, in which case this would be a very boring discussion.
No, because I have some false ones too.
You've thrown in random false ones to trick me.
That's the kind of guy I am. What can I say?
Oh, you're a sneaky boy, aren't you?
I'm a sly one.
Is this one better? Is my mic better now? 1 2 3 1 2 3. No cutting out. Hope so. Maybe this will work.
Hey, boy. I used to be a voice actor. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit at NATO.
You don't give a shit about NATO. Okay, fair enough.
I don't give a shit about NATO.
Well, both of these statements are actually true. And insofar as the United States and NATO wanting not only regime change.
I don't know. Like, it's not. I don't think he's being honest. This makes it sound like the NATO's like trying to assassinate Putin actively. Like, it's something that they probably want. I don't think this is something they're actively.
But the physical breakup of the Russian Federation, that's also true. There are multiple RAND studies where they're basically calling for this. And multiple people have stated outright that they want regime change, including Lindsey Graham, John McCain, all sorts of people. Well, McCain is no longer with.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true that there's multiple American officials who have stated they wanted this. But that's different than it being an active policy of the United States.
Yes, but from hell, he's probably looking forward to this.
John McCain. Jesus Christ, my dude.
Joe Biden in Warsaw, I believe it was, he called for regime change as well, getting rid of Putin. So these are true statements.
I mean, so did.
Can I also just be true? Like, I think Putin being out of Russia would be good. You can like morally weigh that statement whatever you want, but like I think Russia would be better if Putin was gone. I don't know if necessarily. I think like 80% chance it would be better. 20% chance an even worse person takes it.
So did Margaret Thatcher back in the day.
Margaret Thatcher was not the prime minister of the United Kingdom when Vladimir Putin was installed as president. So
no,
what are you
she
talking
met him.
about?
She met him and she said, if this man ever becomes the leader of this nation, may God have mercy on your soul, for I've met a man with no trace.
Man.
Roy Boy Jones, thank you so much for the tier 1. I appreciate it. Thank you for being so for 5 months. Let's just hope the cancer gets him. Jesus Christ. My goodness. The viciousness from chat directed towards Putin.
Humanity.
Okay. The United States and NATO, directly as well as through their Zelensky regime proxies, are winning this war against Russia. True or false?
The US and NATO are winning the war. I mean, they're not. I don't think they're winning the war necessarily. More like the question would, because they're not the ones fighting it, but their contributions are helping the Ukrainians win the war. I would say that Ukraine is winning, depending on your definition of winning, but I would say that the Ukrainian goal is to retake their territory, right? And since the February 25th invasion, the Ukrainians have retaken over 50% of the territory Russia has captured. I think that you could say is winning. But whether or not they continue to win and continue to retake territory is a separate question.
Ooh. Is this one of the sneaky ones?
I'd be giving the game away if I said either way.
Because I happen to know that you disagree with this, don't you? You smoke a lot, Jesus.
Unfortunately, it's stress. I hadn't been smoking for 20 years. Not kidding, or not quite.
I almost picked up smoking in Ukraine, unironically, but I stopped myself, thankfully.
Smoking when I was, 20 years. I quit smoking when I was 33. I picked up cigars, and you don't inhale. And so I sort of like weaned myself off cigarettes. But, because of this conflict, quite frankly, started smoking again. What can I say? I'm up to 2 packs a day.
So what kind of tree would you be?
I don't know. I don't know enough about trees to be able to give an intelligent opinion. So is this statement true or false?
You'd be a birch tree.
Well, you happen to know that you happen to believe that it's false.
And you,
what do you believe?
I believe.
Well, what I'll say,
I would say is true. I mean, like, I don't like the framing, but I would say true to the general spirit of the question.
Is that Ukraine has managed to retake 70% of the land.
Is it true that you live in
70%.
your mother's basement?
That come from? But 70%, I thought it was 50%.
To retake 70% of the land.
Is it true that you live in your mother's basement? That's what the chat is saying.
My mother doesn't have a basement.
Well, or in a room in your mother's house.
Let me check. Mother! No answer. Amazing. Could it potentially be that
maybe she's deaf? Turn on her hearing aid.
Mother, I require your assistance. Come here at once. I'm out of Cheetos. No answer. It's amazing. It could be that I'm in a house entirely by myself. My mother doesn't have a basement. She lives in a completely different country. But if she did have a basement, that'd be fucking great. I would move in there in a heartbeat because she lives in fucking Spain, and Spain is a gorgeous country. I pay less tax. I'd have access to better food.
The United States is, in your estimation, winning this war against Russia. Is that your estimation?
I would say Ukraine is winning the war against Russia with the assistance of the United States. Because the Americans have done this with basically 0 casualties, like done. So if like this is, if we're pitting this as America versus Russia, then we're saying like 0 casualties versus 100,000 casualties. Like damn, man, oof, like that's a terrible KD ratio, man.
Well, I mean, Ukraine has retaken 70% of the land that Russia took in its initial invasion. Russia has not really progressed beyond that. So a lot of people would see that as a victory for Ukraine. And a lot of people would see that, in fact, Russia is winning because they currently have managed to take about half of an old salt mining town just north of Bakhmut. I'm probably butchering the name of that city or town.
Soldar? Is he talking about Soldar? I heard the pro-Russia crowd today actually Soldar has fallen or been encircled and trapped hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers. I have no clue of the reports, so I'm just going to wait for the smoke to clear. I think he's talking about that.
And right now they own between just outside the winery down to the scrapyard. So I mean, it's entirely up to Ukraine
the question.
Takes their victories
Is
in
the US
territories
and NATO winning
in square
the war
miles
against Russia? Are they winning the war in Russia?
Ukraine calculates their victories in square miles. Russia calculates its victories in street names and house numbers.
Oh
no!
Oh, that's vicious.
Russia calculates its victories by way of the number of enemy killed or incapacitated. Because
well, then it's not. That's not a good way to measure it either, because Ukraine's not run out of people.
This is a war of attrition. I'll get to that slide in just a minute, but I want you to answer this question first. Is the United States and NATO winning this war against Russia? Yes or no?
I have answered it. I think I have.
Please, then say so, please, for the audience.
Because you want a yes or no answer. I can't see your chat.
You can see my chat. It's public.
No, I don't want to look at it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a different story.
I don't want to look at a chat where everyone's calling me a man-child. Because that's the best argument they can come up with, because they've never had to insult someone since 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a professor. No, I'm a
so
Scotsman. You can't intimidate me with such weak-ass arguments. Come at me with something stronger.
Sure. Economically, the United States and NATO are losing the war against Russia because, number one, sanctions against Russia have backfired. Number two, the European economy...
That's not true at all. What does that even mean? What does that even... There's sanctions against Russia has backfired. Russia is in a worse economic position than any of the Western countries that have been affected by these... Like, I don't know what he means by that. Like, the automobile industry in Russia has seen 80% hit, or 80% decrease in automobile. Airplane industry has seen, I think, like 40% of their airplanes grounded because they just can't import the spare parts anymore. The technological parts they would need for high precision, long range can't import anymore. Sanctions are cutting the war effort. They have been unable to keep their trains tip top shape, and the trains are starting to suffer, which is something that's extremely important in a country as gigantic as Russia. Tech industry has been absolutely hammered. I mean, we're talking like a 60% reduction in tech GDP. The decrease in consumption of consumer goods. No, and there's also the fact that hundreds of thousands, possibly a million, I don't know exactly now after so long, of Russians have fled the country, either flee the loss of their jobs as Western companies have pulled out, or to flee conscription because they don't want to die in Ukraine. I don't think the sanctions have backfired. If they have, then the West would reverse them. If the sanctions were hurting the West more than Russia, they would simply reverse the sanctions. There's a reason why the Russians want the sanctions removed, is because it's hurting them. I don't like this this statement. I see people say it all the time because they'll point at like gas prices or inflation, but that's not enough to counterbalance the exact the large amount of damage that the economy is taking.
Is deindustrializing because of the sanctions against Russia, with high inflation and a GDP contraction that is projected to be as high as 10% in 2022. The Russian economy...
When he says the European economy, he's not getting into which specific nations.
In counterpoint, has suffered minimal damage with a moderate inflation and only 2.7% GDP contraction. By the way, the 2.7 GDP contraction of Russia, those are IMF figures released a couple of weeks ago, and the 10%, that's Goldman Sachs.
Right.
I would propose, look, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't trust Gonzalo Lira as far as I could throw him. I think Yale produced a really good study on how the Russian economy is holding up. You can notice how he doesn't bring up anything about energy, even though that was the big argument about economics for the last like 6 to 8 months of the war, because people thought winter was going to be the end of the European economies as they all collapsed under high energy prices. And when that did not happen and the European powers were able to replace Russian energy imports with liquefied natural gas, were able to make up the storage volume that was necessary to get through the winter, now the conversation is shifting away from energy, and now it's shifting over to inflation. The Russian economy is in a much worse state than any European economy, especially when we talk about the ones that are the engines, like Germany, France. You get the idea. There's a reason why the Russians are asking for the sanctions to be lifted, because they want that pressure off their economy gone. If it was true that the sanctions were backfiring, then the Russians would want the sanctions because then it weakens the West.
So, economically, are any of these statements true or false?
I'm being told by my own chat to calm down because apparently the sexual tension between us is getting through the roof.
Jesus Christ.
Why do you keep bringing up...
I don't know how much longer I'm going to watch this. I'm going to be for real. This is getting nowhere. They're on like slide 7. How long does this go on for? Oh my God. They go on for a bit.
Up the sex thing, is that the only thing that you have, or is that a crutch that you use when you know that you're losing the argument?
No, it's something that my chat is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd mention that. Just let's calm down and be adults. Let's Turn my
Okay,
voice down.
so let's be
So drunk, man. He's
adults.
so
and
wasted.
Let's be very soft and gentle as you answer these questions. Is any of these points, are any of these points true or false?
I would say that these points cannot be justified as a true or false answer because they're not true or false answers.
Yes, they are true or false.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Oh, no,
10% contraction of European economy, of the Eurozone economy, that's indisputably true. Inflation is high in the Eurozone. That is indisputably true. The lowest figure of the Eurozone is the Netherlands, or I believe is the Netherlands, which is something like 11.4. I know the Netherlands because I live there, and so I pay more attention to their economic data than other countries. And I believe it's
sexual tension. Unironically, I don't want to think about Gonzo in that light. I'm gonna be honest. Trashomancer, thanks for 100 bits.
Estonia has the highest Eurozone inflation with something like 30%. Right. I'm not 100% on Estonia, but I know that it's way up there.
But you notice something about the countries that he's talking about that are the ones that are hit hardest, which are also the ones that are the most reliant on Russia when it comes to like trade and stuff like that. But when you talk about like something like Estonia, pull the population on what they're willing to put up with to support Ukraine. Estonia, as a percentage of GDP, has been one of the most supportive nations to Ukraine. If what he is saying is true about European economies, which I'm not going to take it at face value, he's been extremely misrepresentative of the economic situation, I think. He's been dishonest about many things in this conversation, and it's very easy to cherry pick economic information and statistics, try to make it look like one economy is doing great and other economies are doing terrible. I could probably cherry pick enough information to try to present North Korea as an economic powerhouse and China as like the weak like stepson of North Korea if I really wanted to, and I was really dishonest. So I don't really trust the economic information he's put. I really don't. But also, let's for a moment say it's all true. The nation he's talking about, Estonia, is one of the most supportive of Ukraine. So if it is true that their economy is suffering, it feels like the Estonians are willing to put up with it as long as they continue to support Ukraine.
So like breaking away insofar as inflation.
Also, I have people in my chat right now telling me 30% is not the number. Whatever.
Yeah, okay. But Estonia is not the European economy.
No, but the Netherlands is.
No, the Netherlands is not the European economy. The Netherlands is part
It is the second largest food exporter on the planet. It is a major contributor to the European economy. GDP. Yes, it is. Yes. And the German industry has collapsed because of the loss of cheap energy from Russia. This is indisputably
collapsed. It didn't collapse.
Indisputably true.
This is not indisputably collapsed. If that's true, like Russia, like Germany should be on fire. People should be fucking murdering each other in the street. If the nation collapsed, its industry's gone, all unemployed. It is true that rationing has hurt German industry, but quite frankly, it recovered quite better than anyone would have expected. Everybody thought, oh snap, almost dropped my mic. Everybody thought that this winter was going to be hell throughout Europe. But we're in January, we're heading towards February, and the father winter that was supposed to bring Europe to its knees without Russian energy, it didn't happen. Energy prices went up, people got through it, and now we're moving on. Now, once winter's over, like German industry is going to probably recover in large part. I don't think this is going to have a long-lasting effect on the German economy that is so detrimental that Germans are going to say, hey, we no longer want to support Ukraine. We're out of here. We're done. And most certainly Russia is suffering more economically than the Germans. It's not even a question.
Nobody, insofar as the economic world is concerned, would dispute the fact that the German economy is contracting rapidly and at a catastrophic pace. This is known.
Catastrophic.
This is true. Every
catastrophic pace.
Reputable economist can say that this is true.
No, that's not true. Not true.
And there it is.
Yale disagrees with you. I don't know. There was a Yale study published, I think, 2 or 3 months ago, talking about the Russian economy and how it's not in great shape. Like his idea that every reputable economist agrees that Germany is collapsing is just false.
Every reputable economist. So basically, the economists who agree with your position are the ones
who are
speaking the truth.
There are a lot of economists
all the ones
that I don't agree with. I don't agree with the IMF. I don't agree with the World Bank. I do agree with Goldman Sachs. I do agree with Morgan Stanley's analysis. So the reputable economists are those who are in the mainstream, those who are in fact.
Somebody just brought it up in Twitch chat too. Did you know that European energy prices are almost back to pre-war numbers? Like the big tool that Russia had, like long term, is not going to be enough to pressure the Europeans to stop supporting Ukraine. So the economic war that he's talking about, I don't think the Russians are winning it.
Pro-US and pro-NATO. Your side, they admit that this is the kind of contraction that the European economies are going to be suffering.
And it hasn't happened yet.
It has happened. There are.
I mean, according to these same economists, Germany should have collapsed 4 times by now over the past 8 years, and it's doing fine.
No, it's not. I know people in Germany.
Oh, well, never mind. I take it back. He knows Germans. He knows Germans. I hadn't thought of that. Oh, goodness.
I also know people in Germany.
I know people in the United Kingdom who tell me that there are no eggs and no poultry. There were no eggs and poultry for Christmas season. There were no geese. There were no chickens.
No, it depends what region you're in. I was fine. Yeah, there was a blockade on not a blockade. There was rationing on eggs, but you know why that is?
There was rationing on eggs. Okay.
Yeah, butter went up to like $7 a pack. Do you know why that is?
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
Brexit.
Bro.
Oh, Brexit.
Damn.
Brexit happened. Yeah. When did it happen? 2016, if memory serves.
It did not happen in 2016. The vote happened in 2016, and then it took the Conservatives going through David Cameron, then it was Theresa May, then it was Boris before they actually completed Brexit, which wasn't even a complete separation, but completed Brexit, what, 2019, 2020?
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah,
the Russian economy is suffering minimal damage and with moderate inflation and only 2.7% GDP contraction. True or false?
Russia is currently in more.
The Russian economy suffered minimal damage is, I mean, you can just look at like the best way I think to test an economy, unironically, is to just look at how people react. It's not even to look at numbers here or there. I think I could bring up the Yale study and I could go through the GDP contractions. Oh, like look at this 10% contraction here. There's industries in Russia that have suffered way into like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% GDP contraction, like in the tech industry especially.
Burns is an immoral,
honestly, the easiest way to show it is to just look at the amount of Russians who are fleeing Russia. If you are fleeing Russia, either because you don't want to be sent to die in a war, or because your jobs was just, deported, exported out of the country, I think it's hundreds of thousands of people that are running away. I think it might have crossed 1 million by now. I really don't know. If that's happening, I think that's a pretty heavy indicator that the Russian economy isn't doing too hot.
More debt than it's ever been outside of
it's
COVID.
2% of its gross domestic product, which is inconsequential insofar as its foreign currency reserves and its current balance of trade.
5 trillion rubles in debt. That is trillion with a capital T.
The United States is, well, okay. Are the following statements true or false? Russia is experiencing moderate inflation and only 2.7% GDP contraction. True or false?
That is.
But wait, the problem is with that question is, let's say it's true, right? Which, again, I don't want to give him anything. I don't give him any credit on anything because I think he's incredibly dishonest. But let's say that this is true. This is still cherry picking information. You can say GDP to like market economy doing well or doing fine, doing okay. But countries like Russia and countries like China are not always the 100% honest about its economic predictions, not 100% honest about their GDP, about their growth, about their economic production. So I don't know if I would even trust official numbers. But let's say we trust official numbers. GDP isn't the only way you measure the health of an economy. It's one way, but it's not the only way.
That is so false. It could actually be summarized as bullshit.
True. It's true by the IMF has stated that this is true. These are IMF figures. International Monetary Fund, a Western organization, a US-backed organization,
So
It's their figures.
when we spoke about Britain a little bit earlier, I mentioned that butter.
I'm not interested in
is very
Britain. I'm
expensive.
interested in the current situation in Ukraine and Russia. Please answer the question, or if you are going
And
to
how
answer the question, I'll
expensive
go
is
to the
food?
next slide.
How expensive is food in Moscow right now?
That's not
How
the issue.
expensive
The
is
issue
the price of a car?
So you don't want to answer the question. Okay.
Economies are rising.
Then
Why can't Lazerpig ask any question? Why can't Lazerpig ask a question? Why can't they talk about it? Why can't Lazerpig ask questions? Why is it only that Gonzalo Lira can ask questions to determine if Lazerpig should be put on the wall or not?
the next slide.
Is always rising.
Diplomatically,
That's
the United
not what
States and
bases
NATO
an
are
economy.
losing
An
the
economy
war against
is
Russia.
based on what people can actually afford. A country will have a GDP value that will go up and up and up and up and up until suddenly it doesn't, and then the
Talking
collapse happens.
is not going
That's
to
how
make
economy
any
works.
of your points. So please.
Well, the
If
thing
you
is, you
wanna
keep
keep on
interrupting me, and I
talking
keep
about
moving
random
on when I
things that
try
have
to make a
nothing to
point.
do-
So,
Well, no,
Wait, is he saying that other aspects of Russia, all you need to do to test an economy is look at the GDP and that's it? You don't need to look at specific industries or people moving or a drop in consumption or any of these other, just look at the GDP and that's it. If GDP up, big number, good. If GDP low number, bad. Like that's it. That is all you need to look at. Like any other questions about, hey, what is the price of a loaf of bread for the average Russian consumer? Why are hundreds of thousands of Russians fleeing? What about all these companies leaving? What about the fact that you cannot trade the ruble on the market? What about on any of these things? And no, don't need to ask any questions. That's all unrelated. All you need to do is look at the GDP. No more questions. Thank you very much. You're evil. Goodbye. That's God, man. He cannot breathe without being dishonest.
no, because you don't want to admit to facts that are indisputable. And you're
Well,
trying
according to you, they're indisputable.
filibuster this conversation by way of bringing in extraneous facts about Great Britain and
Dog. He's filibustering? This video, this whole conversation started with a 10 to 15 minute rant about how the people these guys are with want to kill him, which was immediately pushed back upon. He had no evidence for. And now he's presenting a PowerPoint presentation, going through PowerPoint after PowerPoint with this guy. He's asking him yes or no questions and asking for no nuance to be given. Just answer the yes or no to determine if they're evil or just stupid. You are filibustering. This whole conversation is a filibuster. You are filibustering for your audience. This is a giant virtue signal.
that are indisputable. And you're
Well,
trying
according to you, they're indisputable.
filibuster this conversation by way of bringing in extraneous facts about Great Britain and other things.
He brought up Great Britain. He brought up Great Britain. Gonzalo Lira was the person who brought up Great Britain and talked about how people couldn't buy geese. And Lazerpigs, well, I live in Great Britain, and that's not the case for me. Well, why would you bring that up? That's off topic. You brought it up.
That have nothing to do with the points that I am discussing.
okay.
He brought
So
up Great
if I
Britain.
go on an explanation, suddenly it's irrelevant.
Excuse me a moment. I'm going to mute my camera just because I'm going to freshen up my coffee. But I'm still here and I'm listening. Please go ahead.
You know what? I'll be polite. I'll wait till he gets back with the coffee.
No, I'm here. I can hear you fine. I'm just carrying my computer over to get some coffee. It's no problem. Please continue.
Okay.
What is the setup that Gonzo has? By the way, I gotta stop calling him Gonzo. I love Gonzo Journal. Calling him Gonzo feels respectful to Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh,
What was
that's
your
it? You don't
question?
have anything to say about the economic situation? Fine, let's move on to diplomacy then. The United States and NATO are losing the war against Russia. The collective West has become isolated from the rest of the world, while Russia has improved its relations with every other country outside the West. Is this a true or false statement?
False.
Hello?
False. Just false. I don't know. Like, just look at UN votes. Like, the vast majority of nations condemned the Russian invasion. Russia has diplomatically isolated its. Like, there are certain countries that are still happy to have Russia very deeply, but like even Kazakhstan, which is part of Russia's alliance system, is not in favor of the Russian invasion. Condemned it. They see that same logic that justified the Russian invasion when it comes to Russian-speaking populations. Also, could easily apply to Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan has even sent, I think, like generators and aid to. So, like, Hell, like, I mean, like, look at how Russia was embarrassed over Armenia and its inability to protect Armenia from Azerbaijan. I think Russia has been shown to be a lot weaker than they projected. You know, people say paper tiger, but in this instance, to be somewhat of a paper bear. I think they've lost a lot of their soft power and hard power influence. Absolutely. My mic is clipping I keep trying to fix it. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. You know what? I think I'm just going to get rid of all filters on my mic, and I'm just going to give you the most raw audio possible. I can't. There's going to be 0 close threshold. I've deleted the close threshold. So now I can. It should not clip. Is it clipping still? Is it clipping? I've been trying to fix this for days, and like, okay, there's no longer a close threshold. So, still clipping? Well, then I'm just gonna delete my noise gate. There's no longer a noise gate. I can't do it. It's not? Then what? I can't. I'm just gonna start. It clips when you not talking directly in it. Not heard since you fiddled with it. Okay. This is what we're doing now. Because I don't wanna fuddle with this. I'm done.
Hello?
Yes, I asked you a question.
Yeah, you did.
You don't want to answer it.
You won't let me answer these questions.
Please, I'm letting you answer these questions. Go ahead.
No, you're not. Every time I answer a question, you talk over me. You shout me down.
Well, if you're going to talk about extraneous information, then I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in you telling me the truth or falsehood of statements that I am making.
These are not facts you're making. You have not sourced any of them. What you have done is you have written a PowerPoint presentation.
I have said where I got the information, and people can look them up for themselves. I say the IMF studies that were released a couple of weeks ago, and I've given data, I've given the information that they can find for themselves very easily. I'm not going to put links in the middle of these slides, you know, for what purpose?
He doesn't need any evidence.
These are indisputable
but it's
facts
necessary.
that everybody agrees on and everybody knows.
That's not true. He lied multiple times during this debate. He lied about Victoria Nuland. He lied about the death counts in the Donbass. He keeps lying over and over and over and over and over and over and over. He can't say that all of these are indisputable when 90% of them are disputable. He can't say that. He's just lying. It's all he knows how to do.
I beg your pardon?
At the end of every one of my videos, you can go to the description and you can see everywhere, every single source, everywhere I've pulled my facts from, everywhere I've pulled my stories from. I'll even put in reference material. I'll even put in references to books that I don't think you should buy, but they're there because I've referenced them. They're there because I've sourced them. Do you think I'd be a credible historian if I said it's true because I say it is?
We're not.
The T-34 is the worst tank ever made by human hands. I say so. There it is.
We're basically a couple of YouTubers shooting the shit, and I have specific questions that I'm posing to you. Now, if you're unwilling to answer them, okay.
Right.
You can quit whenever you want.
I've got a question for Gonzalo Lira. When he beats puppies with a stick, does he use his left hand or his right hand? Here's my question. No nuance. No nuance. Don't dodge the question. Yes or no. Simple question.
So I'm not holding a gun to your head.
That's what you want, though, isn't it? You want me to quit. You want me to quit so then you can have the moral high ground and go, oh, look, he ran away. He can't answer questions. How pathetic, how sad.
But you're not answering the questions. So it's everybody who's going to listen to this broadcast, they're going to say the same thing. The guy didn't answer the questions.
Man, he has a high image of himself.
I'm putting straightforward, very clear.
Why am I not answering the questions?
Because you know the answers.
Because it's a black and white fallacy.
You don't want to face those answers.
It's a true or false, and if I say false, you go, but, and then you start going, and if I try to talk over you, suddenly everything I have to say is irrelevant.
when you start talking about the British economy and not the EU, because
he brought up the British economy. He said that the British were starving because they couldn't eat birds and geese, right? And then Lazerpig says, actually, I live in the UK. I eat birds and geese all the time. That was fine for me. I don't know what the problem is. And all of a sudden, now that Lazerpig has that personal experience he can point from and be like, hey, look, actually what you said is not true. Now all of a sudden, this is an irrelevant fact. I don't even know why we're discussing it anymore now that I've been proven to be wrong. Whatever.
You yourself said of Brexit that it's no longer part of the European Union. So therefore, I'm talking about the Eurozone, and you start talking about Britain.
And what was the point I was trying?
You brought up Britain. You brought up the UK. What do you mean? He didn't bring it up. You did. He's so dishonest. He'll start talking about a topic, and then when he's shown up on that topic, now it's why we talked about this. This isn't the topic we're discussing. You brought it up.
To make.
You probably didn't have any point, and you were trying to improvise until you lit on some issue that might get a rise out of me.
No. The point I was trying... Let's go back to that, and let's talk briefly for a little moment. The point I was trying to make is you did get a rise out of me telling you about the eggs and telling you about the bottom, the price of that, and I saw your little eyes light up. And then I was going to bring that back to the point of how
did my eyes light up behind my glasses?
Food
I'm looking at myself, and there's like all
You're
kinds
interrupting me again.
Oh, okay, sorry.
How expensive is food in Moscow?
Is there food in Moscow?
Is there food in Moscow? Wow.
What? Okay, I'm sorry. Again, and I just gonna point, I gotta stop pointing out because it happens so much, and I think everybody sees it every time. He is pointing yes or no questions to Lazerpig. If he answers it in any other way, he jumps down his throat about it, right? He's been doing it since slide 1 of this PowerPoint presentation. But anytime Lazerpig asks him a yes or no question, all of a sudden the principles of, oh, you must answer true or false, all just start to crumble away, and now nuance needs to be introduced. Very dishonest.
Because there isn't in Great Britain. Yeah, because there is in Russia, but there isn't in the UK.
There's no food in the UK. Christ, how am I so fat then if there's no food anywhere?
I don't know. You're going to have to go on a forced diet. Break out the leather shoes and start, boiling them or something. Oh, wait, you're not going to have the energy to boil them. My mistake.
He lives in a fucking. He lives in a fantasy land.
He does have food. I was being facetious, and you and I both know it.
You're always
It's kind of getting hard to tell, if I'm completely honest with you.
If that makes you feel better, go ahead. Believe that if you will.
All right, I'll choose to believe it. I'll choose to believe it. Now, answer my question. How expensive is food in Moscow?
I'm not denying that there's been inflation in Russia.
Now food's avoiding the question. Now food won't answer the questions. How expensive is food in Moscow?
I don't know because I'm not in Moscow.
You don't know?
No, I go with the statistics of the overall economy. I do not know.
The GDP is not an overall estimation of how great the economy is. It's one way to look at economic health. You could use it as a single indicator, but there's other things in Russia indicating that the Russian economy isn't doing too hot. The tech industry, the airplane industry, the automobile industry, the amount of people who are fleeing Russia, the amount of businesses that are fleeing the country, the inability for people to exchange the rubles, the activity on the black market, putting the ruble's value a lot lower than the official government estimation. All of this stuff seems to indicate that the Russian economy is not doing too hot. But if you just look at the GDP, then you kind of lull yourself into thinking, oh, it's not that bad. Same thing about just looking at the official price of the ruble. If you ignore all the price controls that are in place that are artificially keeping it higher, then I guess, yes, it's a very powerful currency, but you can't trade it for anything.
The price of food in Russia. No, I don't.
But you know all about the German.
This is again you trying to focus on a specific tree so as to avoid the forest.
Right.
It's a rhetorical strategy, and it's very old. Schopenhauer wrote about it. Yeah.
How about I answer the question for you?
40, 50 years ago.
How about I answer the question for you?
Sure.
It's doubled in price.
Mm-hmm.
Cars have, tripled in price? Some are up by, 5 times, 10 times actually. My apologies. And they're running out of buckwheat. They're running out of salt, and apparently they're running out of sugar as well.
Really? Because,
Yeah,
see, I see all these videos,
their economy
I
is
see
fine.
all these pro-Western videos of Russians and Americans and Brits living in Russia, and they show supermarkets, and they seem pretty well stocked to me. Certainly better than here in Kharkov. Certainly better than UK or the Netherlands.
Yeah, I'm sure if you look at a picture.
I was in Kharkiv. I never had problem getting food. If you're poor, it's probably very hard for you to get food right now, but I never had a problem getting food while I was in Kharkiv. I don't know.
Of a supermarket, you can see, yes, there's plenty of pasta sauce. But pasta sauce was not one of the things I listed. I said buckwheat and sugar and salt.
Okay.
Do you have pictures
so
where they have
moving
on
to the diplomatic front.
Okay. So
the collective West has
given you
become
an answer.
Now they were getting into the nuance of the Russian economy. Now he's very excited to move on. Whatever. It's how much more of this should we watch, boys? I know we gotta watch the ending of the Lazerpig thing because I heard it didn't end happily. So I do want to at least watch that.
That you don't like. Now we're moving on.
No, because you're just pulling bullshit out of your ass, and you and I both know it. It's a waste of time to argue with such a thing. See,
I make a point, it's bullshit.
Well, it is bullshit because we're talking about. I asked you a specific question: whether in Russia
does that make me ignorant or evil?
That makes you evil.
Right.
Look, you're an evil guy. I saw your video, your previous videos. Okay.
Which ones?
You know, I can be civil with a pig, but I know what I'm dealing with. Okay.
You have absolutely no idea what you're dealing with here.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't give you my email address, because I knew that you were going to spread it around and have it be spammed. And that's why I'm very careful about how I handle you, because you're the kind of guy who would be happy to give away my precise location so that some goon harms me here in Kharkov.
He's such a fucking victim. There is nobody else on the internet with a bigger victim complex than Gonzalo Lira. Everybody wants me dead. Everybody's gonna kill me. Everybody's gonna murder me. Dude, if you're in so much danger in Ukraine, you can leave, dog, at any time, freely. Like, whatever.
Because that's the kind of guy you are, and I want to show that. That's why you're on. The whole point of this exercise is to show people who you really are.
I have absolutely no interest.
Dishonest, lying, and willing to harm other people for his ego and for his feeling of belonging to the Western regimes that are committing a genocide here in Ukraine. This war would have been over long ago.
5 billion Donetsk children and stuffed into concentration camp in Kiev. Very sad, very, very terrible. I saw it myself. It was crazy. All the Western reporters said, we'll never take pictures of it because we're evil. Ah! What is he talking about, man? He lives in a fantasy world.
Oh, had it not been for your prime minister, your propaganda that scuttled the deal in April, that would have been a ceasefire. That's why the Russians withdrew, because of the negotiations that were going on in Istanbul.
That's not why they withdrew. They did not withdraw because of the negotiations. They withdrew because they found out they were not going to be able to take Kiev and that the government wasn't going to collapse. That is a very charitable interpretation for the Russian side from the guy who says he's not pro-Russia, while also claiming that they've destroyed all these HIMARS with no physical evidence.
And then Boris Johnson flew into Zelensky and then told him in no uncertain terms that he could not sign any kind of peace agreement. So everything that has happened since early April until today, all the senseless deaths of all the young men in Ukraine, it's because of people like...
Somebody just, one second. Somebody said there's a comment pin saying all the people angry. Lazerpig got his audience to brigade the comment section. That's what I get for rolling in the mud with this guy. Though it was a delight to hear him squeal in panic. 328 replies. Look at this. Cope harder. And you blocked the chat to only people who have been subscribed for 8 days. Cope. I'm sorry, man. If you embarrassed yourself, you can't blame everybody else for embarrassing yourself.
You, who knew the facts, and just said, yeah, march on, keep on fighting. Yeah, Ukraine, I stand with Ukraine. and have all the Ukrainian young men, the flower of this country, be killed in a senseless war?
The war will end immediately if the Russians leave. The war started when the Russians came. I want to end the war, have them leave. Very simple. Also, I do want to bring up the fact that during this whole debate, like you would think, like the fans were very, his fans that is, were very vicious towards Lazerpig, of course. But a lot of them were continuously telling Gonzo, definitely during the early parts before he quieted down the chat and who could participate, to like calm down and just let them talk, stop interrupting them, you look bad. Like even his own fans knew that like Gonzo was like, Gonzalo here, Mr. Coach Red Pill, was embarrassing himself.
You you always knew. And you're just an evil fuck who is happy to see the destruction of the Ukrainian nation and the Ukrainian people.
Oh, I saw, and I know this is crazy, personally, and I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know what the SBU would do to me, but I was in Ukraine, and I saw Lazerpig marched in with the right sector. It was very gruesome. He said, "Where are all the Donetsk children?" And then there was this little old Ukrainian babushka. She comes out. It's like, no, please don't kill the Donetsk children. And Lazerpig said, "Get out of here, whore!" And like slaps her. She falls to the ground. It's very, very horrible. And then he goes to Donetsk and kills 5 billion children. It was horrific. I couldn't believe it.
Tears you shed for Ukraine, and how tragic it is that the Zelensky regime is marching soldiers to their death, but not a thought spared for all the Russians who have died, and for what? I have personally spoken to people who have fled Mariupol, both prior and while under Russian rule. I've also had the opportunity to speak to some of the families of Syrian volunteers who were promised home. Bring your families, bring your children to Putin's new Russia if you come and fight for him. And they talk of the debris. They talk of the lack of services. They talk of the lack of facilities and the fact that they cannot go outside at night because the streets are owned by wild animals, by dogs, by wolves who dig through the rubble to feast.
What are you talking about? You're just randomly spewing out words.
See, Gonzo, he just cannot let Lazerpig go on a single diatribe. After going off to like 20, 30, 40, 50 diatribe. Lazerpig is actually like was painting a pretty graphic, pretty descriptive picture here, and now Lyra's like, "What? You're insane! Oh my god!" Anyway, back to the Ukrainian bioweapons and plans to invade the Donbass. Jesus Christ!
It's because you know that everything I previously said is true.
By the Russian
army. Such a clown.
You knew about the destruction of Ukraine.
How does anybody listen to this guy and not think that like the highest he could ever like reach in life is like, I don't know. Look, all I'm saying is if he was to leave Ukraine and flee, at any point he'd be taking the out of the buses chosen, he'd be choosing one of the shorter variety, man, because this is embarrassing behavior. I don't know why he's engaging like this. I assume he's just trying to be dishonest, but like he just let him speak. Like just let Laser speak. Like the more you interrupt him, the more you embarrass yourself at this point.
Running around the street.
What you encourage with your propaganda and your lies
is life under
the destruction of the Ukrainian nation.
I want to hear it from your mouth.
You want the destruction of the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian nation because you are fundamentally a nihilist.
Why you think this is acceptable for Russia?
Do you want a shit show? Am I delivering? Chat, hit me with a +1 if I am delivering a shit show for you.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people want to hit him with something, man. Like this guy is so insufferable.
Hi, chat.
You guys wanted to see a shit show? Here we are. I'll wait for chat to catch up. Hit me with a +1 if you're enjoying the shit show.
Nobody's enjoying the shit show. Nobody is.
Your subscribers
nobody. I don't enjoy watching this. The reason I'm watching this is because Gonzalo almost never, ever lets himself get challenged intellectually. And so I thought, hey, maybe today I would see that. But, of course, I was silly to assume such a thing, to think such a thing. And now this is what we've descended into. A PowerPoint presentation as he virtue signals, screams over Lazerpig anytime he, in detail, tries to describe state of Russia or the type of things Russia has done in Ukraine.
Into this chat.
Yeah, because I knew that you'd brigade it, and Destiny would too. That's why neither one of you mentioned a peep to your followers that you were going to be on.
Wait, he thinks there was a plan that like Destiny and Lazerpig planned to brigade Gonzalo's stream because they didn't announce they were going to be on. Maybe they didn't announce they were going to be on because you're not that important. Like they aren't talking to Ben Shapiro. They're not talking to Steven Crowder. If Lazerpig was going to set up a conversation with me, I doubt he'd be like, "Hey everybody, I have an exciting news. I'm talking to DylanBurns." No, he'd probably just come on because I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not like Charlie Kirk or some massive influencer. And neither are you.
Mentioned 4 times that I'll be on. There's been 2 announcements in my Discord. There's been 2 announcements.
I'm not on Discord, so
on my YouTube. Well, that's not exactly, it's not exactly me saying, "Oh, I'm going to keep this a secret," am I? No, I even posted it on Twitter.
So let's get back on topic.
Can you answer my question, please?
Yes, the question is as follows. True or false? The collective West has become isolated from the rest of the world while Russia has improved its relations with every other country outside the West. True or false?
I find it very interesting. You have to jump to the chat when you suddenly start to feel insecure. Can you answer my previous question, please?
Can you rephrase it? Because you said so much bullshit that I could not tell what was a question and what was just more gassy, filibustering nonsense.
Where did you hear up to?
I beg your pardon?
Where did you hear up to? I was talking about
I'm not really paying attention to you. I'm just trying to keep on point as to...
You're not paying attention to me.
No, because nothing you're saying is of any interest whatsoever so far. I'm waiting for you to entertain me, okay? This is more tedious for me than for you, because in my usual broadcasts, I have entertaining guests, interesting guests who have a lot to say and who are very insightful. You're not one of them.
You have guests who agree with you on every point, and then you don't need to say anything. You just move them from topic to topic, and then they discuss why everything that you've said is correct.
True. No, it's 100% true. That's the most accurate description of a Gonzalo Lira stream I've ever heard.
Extremely stimulating.
It's actually very similar to a Jimmy Dore stream.
I have had hardcore leftists, and everybody knows that I'm a conservative, and it's been really interesting to talk to them.
Okay.
But they all agree with you on one issue, Russia and Ukraine. You always bring on the people who agree with you on that issue. You don't care what they think about like X policy in the United States. You just make sure that they're a Russian lapdog, and as long as they are, you'll get along fine with them. You can just move from topic to topic about the war.
No, because you're not saying anything that is particularly interesting so far. You're just gassy bullshit.
Do you constrain your other guests into truth or dare questions? Are you ignorant or evil? Answer honestly. And if you say the wrong answer, then you shall be punished.
I've never done this before. But I knew what I was dealing with, you know? Because I always remember George Bernard Shaw's quip, you know, never get down in the mud to wrestle with the pig, because you'll only get dirty and the pig will enjoy it. And well, it's in your name. So I decided to be prepared, and I put myself, you know, in a nice little plastic-proof, mud-proof suit to make sure that we stay on point.
To protect yourself.
Yes, because I don't want to get soiled by you.
A metaphorical pig. I need to ask, do you genuinely think
that you're an actual pig? But that's...
Do you think I'm an actual pig?
Yeah.
Right. If my avatar was... If I was Laser Llama, would that make you feel more secure?
No, I'd still consider you a pig.
Right.
Giggling is not going to help you.
But I'm finding this funny. I'm sorry. I mean,
dude, I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. Can we skip to the end? Are you guys cool if I skip to the end, or do you guys want to get through the rest? Because like, as much as I like the Laser Llama quips back and forth of the same thing we've been discussing for the whole thing, this has like another at least, and I do not know if I want to be watching this till 10 p.m. Skip, skippity, skip, skippity, skip, skip, skip. Okay. Skip towards the end.
Want me to say? Okay, I'm terrible with languages. Shit, I lived for a year and a half in France, and I couldn't learn fucking French, even though I had fucking daily lessons at it. I'm sorry. It's just not...
Somebody in chat just asked, how does it feel like to have a man more than twice your age act like that? I mean, I guess it just further reinforces to me that like age is never you know, maybe you know what, I don't think I can say that on Twitch. All I'm gonna say is that I feel like Gonzalo Lira has been on the internet for a very, very long time, much longer than me, and I would assume with the amount of experience and conversations and back and forths he's had on the internet, he would hold himself to a higher standard than this and would engage in maybe a genuine back and forth that wasn't so clearly rigged from the get-go, from how he tried to frame the conversation, the true or false, the only yes or no questions, blocking any nuance and yelling over the people who try to add that nuance to the conversation. And pivoting away from conversations he pivoted to in the first place, then questioning why they pivoted to Great Britain, like just the lies. Like you would expect a higher standard from him, but I don't know. Maybe you just can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is just how he's always been.
How my brain is wired. Now, socially, let's go on the issue of the United States and NATO are losing the war against Russia on the social level. Let's talk about specific issues that I think actually you and I might agree on a lot of these points, but people in the West are suffering and protesting. Is that true or false?
Of course, that's true.
That's
people
very
in
true.
the West are always suffering and always protesting about whatever.
Okay, all the governments in the West have the support of less than half their populations. True or false?
That I don't.
Less than 0.5% of their populations? That I don't know. Joe Biden's at like 46, 47. It's pretty close.
I don't know.
Actually, it's true.
Okay.
I mean, come on. Do you think that a majority of people are in favor of Rishi Sunak?
Well, that's hard to argue against, but you know, I do like this notion of popular support, and I love the fact that you've come out and said, even though you don't speak the language, you don't involve yourself with the culture.
I'm very interested in Gonzalo Lira's argument on popular support, because if this is something he cares about, then he would have to secede to the fact that Zelensky is a government in the West and he has like 80% support amongst his countrymen, and the pro-Ukraine, pro-NATO position in Ukraine is the very, very, very most popular political position when it comes to foreign policy. Like over 80% of Ukrainians support NATO membership. So if popular support is something he cares about, why doesn't he recognize the popular support Ukrainians have given to NATO and Zelensky?
Sure. You don't even know the national anthem. Can you sing it? Can you sing it in English?
No.
You can't even sing it in English.
No.
Okay.
Just because I don't know that, just because I can't sing a song doesn't mean, I mean, like.
It's not a song, it's the national anthem.
Look, I would be hard pressed to sing the national anthem of Chile, and I am fucking Chilean. And I had to sing that fucking song every goddamn week in school. And I would be hard pressed. I'm being dead serious. How does that fucking thing go? I honestly forgot. And my head is not in that space at all. So to sing the Chilean.
So the national anthem of Ukraine, if I remember, is Ukraine is not lost, is not yet lost or not lost, and I don't know the words, but I can hum it. It's like I think I'd sound like a moron if I just started humming it, but I think I'm right that is the national anthem.
Anthem, or
because I hear it everywhere. So Ukraine. Something along those lines.
Or the anthem of any other country doesn't mean squat. It doesn't mean that you care about it. I'm here, okay? The fact that I'm here means that I care about it. I have the opportunity and the passports to live wherever the fuck I want. So if I'm here,
well, I mean, that's not true, because in your own words, you're not allowed to leave Carson.
Well, quite frankly, if I really, really wanted to leave, I could leave. But I've decided.
Okay, so he can leave. Okay.
Decided for my own reasons that I want to stay here until the end of the conflict.
Okay. Since you love Ukraine so much, what does Ukraine think about surrendering to Putin?
I am not at liberty to answer that question.
Dude, what does that even mean? Is it illegal for him to say the truth that the majority of Ukrainians don't want to surrender? What does that even mean? I'm not at liberty to say? Why should we trust anything you have to say if you're not at liberty to tell the truth? What does that even mean?
Of course you're not, because they've been polled twice. They have been polled.
Not even twice. They've been polled so many times on this issue, and it always comes back with the same.
Twice on the idea, should we surrender to Putin under the terms that he has dictated?
He hasn't dictated any terms.
He has dictated.
He's dictated terms multiple times. Yes, he has. The demilitarization of Ukraine, the denazification of Ukraine, the Donbass being, liberated, quote unquote. I think demilitarization, denazification, the recognition of the annexation of Crimea, the recognition of all of this territory he's since taken, and also like the Donbass. These seem to be the terms that he's dictated, and those are like his starting position. It's ridiculous, but these are the terms the government keeps.
The Zelensky regime has dictated terms for negotiations.
They have. Do you know what they were?
Yeah, they were like, Russia has to get out of all of Ukraine, including Crimea, and only then will the Zelensky regime start negotiating with Russia, which is no point at all. It's basically a total bullshit in order to give the appearance that they are willing to negotiate, when in actuality they have no intention of negotiation. They want to destroy the Ukraine nation and the Ukraine people.
What does that even mean? The Ukrainian government wants to destroy the Ukrainian people. This is just ridiculous propaganda. He's just trying to justify the Russians murdering people by saying, the Ukrainian government, they forced it. It's the Ukrainian government murdering them. We're not murdering them when they bomb them. It's the Ukrainians by making us murder them.
Is a curd.
My goodness.
Blue Rider of Neptune has donated $5. When you move on to this self-debate here that Lair is having with himself, can you possibly talk about MTG being sued by Dr. Dre?
I saw that Marjorie Taylor Greene posted a Dr. Dre song on Twitter. Then it got removed due to a copyright strike. I did not know that Dr. Dre was suing her. That is very funny. Silly, but funny.
The ego of people like yourself and the warmongers of the United States and NATO.
I'm pretty confident.
Look, I'd respect you more if you were just saying, yeah, I'm an evil warmonger and I don't give a shit about Ukraine and the Ukraine people. I'd respect you more. The fact that this is bullshit, this kind of bullshit that you got going, it's just really despicable. It's sort of like the abortion issue. See, if you want to kill a baby because it's inconvenient, just say so. None of this bullshit that, it's not real life, it's this or that. Fuck that. Be a man. Stand up and say, fuck, I don't give a fuck. If it requires some death for my convenience, fine. Just say that. I'd respect you more. But this wishy-washy bullshit.
You'd respect me more for agreeing with you.
Well,
that some death is worth it.
I beg your pardon?
You agree that some death is worth it then?
No, I don't agree with that at all.
You look at Russia.
No, you're lying about what I said.
You look at the war crimes that they have committed.
It's despicable.
You look at the mass extermination.
The mass extermination. There hasn't been any mass extermination. That's a lie.
There's been no mass extermination. The Russians haven't done anything, but the Ukrainians are engaged in an active Holocaust too against Russians. Even though they have Russians in their government, Russian speakers, that is, Russian speakers in their military, and the whole country is run by somebody who is a native Russian speaker.
Has been indiscriminate shelling of Ukrainian people by the Zelensky regime. That's an undisputed fact. They have dropped pedal mines all over Donetsk, where children can be killed and people maimed permanently because of these pedal mines that serve no useful military application other than to terrorize civilians. No,
Dylan, you saw mass graves while you were there? Yep. Yeah, I did.
What you're saying there is just a bunch of bullshit, and you and I both know it. And that's the fact. And I'm going to be ending this conversation because we've gone on for an hour and 45 minutes. And further conversation with you, I think we pretty much agree is a waste of both of our time. But I'm just going to say, I think I've made it very clear, but just to reiterate, I think that you're a piece of shit. I think you're a warmongering bastard who endures the suffering of the Ukraine nation and the Ukraine people.
I'm Scottish. Honey, I'm Scottish.
Yeah, and
level up those insults, please. Don't insult me by coming at me with this weak sauce.
Okay.
Damn.
Now I'm going to bid you goodbye.
Okay. Fucking bye.
Die painfully, I hope.
fucking loser. Die painfully. What is this edgelord nonsense? I hope you suffer and I hope you burn 1,000 deaths. Tip, tip, tip. Fucking die painfully, I hope. Die painfully. What a fucking loser. I'm sorry, man. I can't take him serious. Not a serious person. Not a serious person. I don't want to watch this self-debate. I don't want to watch him jerk himself off for another hour. That's enough of that. Die painfully. Die painfully.